Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm back, as you can see. I was going to, like, I just finished dinner, and then I was going to watch these interviews anyway, so I figured I might as well stream them so we can all watch them together, right? Um, there you go. I'm back, and I'm going to play a number of interviews. Um, with, of course, the late Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. Today is his birthday, so a huge happy birthday to this amazing, amazing individual. If you caught my earlier live stream, I basically went over um, sort of what Iran looked like in the 1970s and also how he was modernizing Iran, combating illiteracy, poverty, hunger, all those sorts of things. And the Islamists really did him dirty. The Islamists and communists really, really did him dirty with all the lies that they propagated about him. And this is like the part of Iranian history that I don't like talking about, but of course we all do because it's like every time I think about it or talk about it, it's like reliving a nightmare, right? It's like getting up to 1979 and you know what's going to happen. Like the whole country is just gonna um, go to hell, basically. And it's like you can see all the signs. You can see all the signs, and you can see the insanity of some of the accusations made against him. And it's like you're screaming. You're like, no, stop! Don't do it! Don't do it! Fight back! I would have to say my only criticism of um, the late Shah of Iran, I only have one criticism, is that I don't think he was hard enough against the Islamists and communists. I think that, especially when it comes to the Islamists, the Shah of Iran, he showed too much mercy. Um, if he had taken a stronger stance with them, Iran would not be in the situation that it is today. Because the same the people right now that are occupying Iran are the ones who were in prison before 1979. Like the people who have turned Iran into an Islamic dictatorship governed by Sharia law are the ones that the Shah was keeping in jail, and he was protecting the Iranian nation from those Islamic terrorists. He knew them for what they were. So, my only criticism is that he showed mercy. Um, it's a lesson that we Iranians have learned the hard way. We paid for it with blood. We continue to pay for it with blood. And I have a feeling that Iranians as a whole are not going to show mercy anymore. The Islamists have shown their true colors. Um, and yeah, Iranians are done with them. Iranians are done with the Ayatollahs. They're done with the Islamic Republic. But I'm gonna play these interviews because I want to, refresh myself. And also, um, I also want to show you guys the madness and the insanity of what he was dealing with, right? Like some of the questions that these reporters were asking. Absolutely, absolutely insane. Like they did so dirty to Shahanshah Aryameh, and thankfully, we Iranians have been, at least within our own, within our own media and everything. We love him. He's highly loved, highly respected, great, great leader. Um, and what we really fight with is the non-Iranians, right? Well, first of all, the Islamists and communists, right? The Islamists, communists, and far left, they're always going to be anti-imperialists. So they're the ones who spout this propaganda that, the Shah was a dictator and all this like nonsense, which, as I explained in my earlier live feed, was complete and utter nonsense and lies. I mean, the guy was literally building 4,000 schools a year to educate people and improve the literacy rate. I don't know which dictator in the world. Like, can you name one dictator to me that has built 4,000 schools a year to promote literacy in the country? Can you point to a single dictator who gave women the right to vote in 1963 without a women's suffragette movement? Women didn't even need to do a suffragette movement in Iran, right? The Shah of Iran, and of course the Empress of Iran at the time, implemented the White Revolution to modernize Iran. Part of that was giving women the right to vote. I don't know which dictator does that, right? So when you look at the facts don't line up with the narrative that the Islamists and the communists are pushing out there. So I'm going to play some of the interviews. Um, oh, I see I have a message here. Let me just play this. So just a reminder to everyone on YouTube, I do always do a shout out to start messages, and I'll display them as well. So Major says 1979 was Yuri Bezmenov's explanation in real life. And yes, the Shah was too nice, but I think his cancer caused him to fade too much. The cancer was definitely an issue there. And my understanding, I have to go back and look at this again. My understanding is that um, the Islamists and communists really took advantage of of the Shah's cancer at the time. He had leukemia, and when he left Iran to go get treatment, that's when Air France brought Khomeini in. I think that's what happened. So he never like the Shah never abdicated, right? Like he never abdicated the throne. My understanding is he left Iran to go get leukemia treatment, and then while he was gone, Air France and Jimmy Carter and they all brought they brought in Khomeini, the evil demonic Ayatollah who turned Iran into a 7th century Islamic hellhole and started murdering us. So thank you to France and Jimmy Carter for enabling the communists and Islamists. But having said that, I want to start off with a quick interview.
The
So this is actually Richard Nixon, and this is a clip from the Richard Nixon Foundation. And I don't know if you guys know, but Richard Nixon and the Shah of Iran had a very, very close relationship. They were very good friends. And yeah, if I recall, I think Richard Nixon actually did attend the Shah's funeral when he passed away. So there were two world leaders who attended the Shah's funeral when he passed away from leukemia. One was the president of Egypt at the time, Sadat, and the other one was Richard Nixon, I believe. So let's just hear, let's listen to what Richard Nixon says. And I think this is going to be very eye-opening for Americans because, a lot of Americans don't realize that Iran and the United States were, in fact, incredibly close allies. And that was in large part due to the very solid relationship that Nixon and the Shah had. Richard Nixon and even Jimmy Carter after Richard Nixon would go on state visits to Iran, where the Shah of Iran would proudly fly the flag of America. And the Shah would go to America. There they would fly the lion and sun flag, this flag here. So let's see what Richard Nixon has to say about the Shah.
Shah is generally accepted as having been a very repressive and oppressive ruler. His Savak tortured and killed. He lived in considerable splendor and opulence while there was terrible poverty in his country. In your book, Leaders, you write that he was not ruthless enough in quashing those who threatened his nation's stability. Do you think he should have been more ruthless?
Yes, I do, particularly in view of the fact that his opponents were not those who were basically more liberal, but because basically they were reactionary. They were the true reactionaries. Let's look at the Shah for just a moment and look at him very fairly. He actually was a progressive in a number of ways. He instituted a land reform program. He instituted a literacy program. He sent thousands of students from Iran to the United States, and particularly the United States, to study, and in other countries as well. He liberated women. The irony was that those he liberated, the women and the students he sent abroad, they came back and joined the revolutionary forces. And the irony
I'll speak to that in a moment, but pay attention to that because everything that Richard Nixon is saying, we need to unpack here, and I will unpack for you. I just want to listen to the whole thing once, and then we'll go back bit by bit.
was that the Shah, being progressive, was attacked as being reactionary and conservative on these particular issues, whereas his opponents were the reactionaries. Putting it very bluntly and very simply, the Shah was trying to move Iran into the 20th century. His opponents, Khomeini et al., wanted to move Iran back into the Dark Ages, and that's what they've done. Now, there was some repression, true. Now there is total repression. There may not have been enough land reform. Now there is none whatever. What I am simply suggesting is this, that when we look at the Shah, we have to look at him in terms of what he confronted. And he confronted revolutionary forces there that were not working, in my view, for what was best for Iran and certainly not best for ourselves. And most important from the United States standpoint, instead of having a friend in Iran, we now have one that is not only not a friend, but one that considers us to be the great Satan.
Wow. Wow. I mean, okay, let's go back because it's a short clip, but there is so much to unpack there, guys. And, for those of you who might not be familiar with what he is referring to or speaking about, I got you. I'll go down, I'll break it down for you bit by bit. And guys, if you're enjoying the live stream, make sure you like and subscribe and share it so other people can come here and find out the truth. And it's not coming from me. This isn't coming from me. This is coming from a former United States president. This is an American citizen, former president of the United States, who is speaking about what happened in Iran. And Richard Nixon is one of the few people who gets it right. To his credit, I mean, there's so much propaganda out there, there's so much misinformation. Richard Nixon has always had a clear head. And again, this interview is like from, the early 80s, right? This is from the early 80s. So he was calling it out. He was calling out the threat of Islamic terrorism, like when it first happened. So let's go back, listen to this, and I'll unpack it for you.
As having been a very repressive and oppressive ruler. His Savak tortured and killed. He lived in considerable.
So the whole thing about Savak torturing and killing, another huge lie. I'm still waiting to find out who these tens of thousands of people were that the Shah supposedly murdered. There's no record of them. There's no document of them. In fact, afterwards, it found out that those numbers were all falsified. The amnesty reports about Savak were all debunked because it was all lies. Very similar, by the way, very similar to how Hamas sends fake numbers about, Palestinian deaths to everyone else, and then later they quietly change it, right? And no one ever hears about it. But yeah, I'm still waiting. If someone can give me the name of like one person, one innocent person who was killed and tortured by Savak, I'm still waiting. So I mean, let me know in the chat, especially to all the haters who say that the Shah was a dictator and he tortured people. Give me proof. You should be able to have the name of at least one person, right? So find me one person, okay, who was an innocent person that the Shah tortured or murdered or whatever. You can't find it because it doesn't exist, right? It does not exist. So this is all the lies and propaganda, right? And they had pushed this narrative so much that even this reporter just casually puts it out there, just casually says, Savak tortured and killed people. Who are these people? I'm Iranian. I don't know who these people are. If anyone can find these people, let me know. And the people in the chat who are unhappy with what I'm saying, I mean, if you're just like putting in swear words, I'll ban you. But maybe instead of swear words, I mean, challenge me, come with some logic or fact. But you guys can't. You guys can't because you're all Islamic terrorists and you have very low IQ. And, the same way that everyone talks about this fake Gaza genocide, which never happened, they're talking about Savak torturing and starving Iranians. And I don't know of a single, I don't know who these Iranians are, but they just, they casually throw out that lie in there. Okay.
Splendor and opulence while there was terrible poverty in his country.
So here's the other thing. So they say, oh, the Shah, lived in splendor and opulence while there was terrible poverty. Guys, the Pahlavi dynasty inherited that poverty. In fact, during the Shah's reign, he was eliminating poverty. Remember in the previous video, I showed you he literally made something called the Peace Army, which was, thousands of Iranian men and women who were tasked with going to different parts of the country to build schools, to educate people, and both children and adults, and to combat poverty. So he literally had thousands of people fighting. He called them the Peace Army. Thousands of people, thousands of Iranians around the country who were working on this. And like I said, the guy was building at least 4,000 schools a year. Okay. But again, the lines that this reporter so casually uses without any evidence, right? This is what really upsets me when I look at past interviews with respect to the 1979 Islamic Revolution. They throw out these buzzwords, but there's no evidence to it. There's no proof. They can't actually back up their statements, right? It's very similar to the Free Palestine, right? Like it's just buzzwords. It's just, Israel is a terrorist state, right? Like all this like nonsense they say, but there's nothing to back it up. And it's the same tactic that Islamists use. They use it for Iran, they use it for Israel, they use it for America. Like it's the same jihadi tactic, just these low IQ buzzwords. So go back and just listen to how casually this so-called reporter talks about the Shah, torturing and murdering Iranians, but he has literally no proof. And to this day, there still is no proof because that was all made up, right? The same way that the Islamists lied about Cinema Rex. Remember, guys, Cinema Rex, actually, let me bring it up because Cinema Rex is like very common knowledge for Iranians, but it's not not common knowledge for the rest of you guys. But what happened at Cinema Rex is the perfect example of how taqiyya works and how Islamists lie. Okay, so I'm about to show you another very good example of how Islamists murdered Iranian people to justify overthrowing the Shah by claiming that he did it, even though he didn't. So let me pull this up here. It's on Wikipedia, so I don't know how accurate it's going to be, but let's see. Okay. All right, got to remove the Richard Nixon one first. Where are you, Nixon? Okay. Okay, so the Cinema Rex fire, okay? It happened in August of 1978, and this fire is pretty much what sparked the anger that you saw on the streets after, right? So when you see all those angry people in the streets, chanting for revolution or whatever, it's because of this incident, because the Islamists and communists told the Iranian people that this was the Shah. The Shah did this. However, after the fact, after the Islamic Revolution had taken place and the Islamists had taken control and Iran had turned into an Islamic dictatorship governed by Sharia law, then the Iranians found out, oh shoot, that wasn't the Shah. Those were the Islamists. The same people who are in control right now were the ones who caused this fire. So here, the event started when 4 individuals who were militants motivated by Islamic extremism. Okay, so let me go back a little bit. So this fire happened on August 1978, when the Cinema Rex in Abadan, Iran, Abadan's a city, was set ablaze, killing between 377 and 470 people. The event started when four individuals who were militants motivated by Islamic extremism doused the building with airplane fuel before setting it alight. The attack was responsible in part for triggering the Iranian Revolution of 1979, which saw the overthrow of the ruling dynasty under the Iranian monarch and a related outbreak of mass violence. The governing dynasty initially blamed Islamic Marxists for the fire and later reported that Islamic militants started the fire, while anti-Pahlavi protesters falsely blamed Savak, the Iranian secret police, for setting. Do you see that, guys? Do you see this? Okay? All of those lies and nonsense about Savak, it's false. Guys, even people in the chat who say the Shah was a dictator, Savak murdered people, right? It was false. It was later proved to be false. It was not Savak that did that. It was the Islamists, right? It was the Islamists. And yet look how easily, right? And then here you go. Even though the Islamic extremists were responsible for the attack, the Islamic opposition benefited greatly from the disaster in terms of propaganda because of the general atmosphere of mistrust and wrath. I might have to change my network. All right, I'm back. So, the Islamic opposition benefited greatly from the disaster in terms of propaganda because of the general atmosphere of mistrust and wrath. Many Iranians accepted the disinformation which fueled growing anti-Shah fervor. Guys, what does that sound like? That literally sounds like Hamas murdering innocent people and then blaming Israel in order to justify murdering more Jewish people. This is the MO of the Islamists, guys. This is the MO. This is what they do. They murder people and then they blame others and then they use the tragedy to gain power. Right? It's been the same MO from the beginning. So let's go back and so do you now understand why I find it so frustrating, so incredibly frustrating when you have these like ignorant you have these ignorant, idiotic reporters like this guy here, right? Who just very casually says that the Shah was a dictator and he, Savak murdered people, right? The whole thing about Savak murdering people was the lie about the movie theater, where the Islamists did it, but then they blamed the Shah, they blamed Savak. And then later it was found out it was the Islamists in the first place. So, but this is the propaganda that he was dealing with. This is the propaganda that Iranians were dealing with at the time.
Very repressive
and just remember, guys, like the life lesson for you: never trust an Islamist. Everything that comes out of their mouth is a lie. They do not care about you. They do not care about your lives. They are literally willing to murder people in order to advance the cause of jihad. They literally murdered innocent Iranians in order to justify overthrowing the Shah and taking over and turning Iran into an Islamic caliphate, right? So when people ask, well, the Shah, what happened? Cinema Rex is exactly what it is.
oppressive ruler. His Savak tortured and killed.
See, Savak, but it wasn't Savak, it was the Islamists. We already established that.
Lived in considerable splendor and opulence while there was terrible poverty in his country. In your book, Leaders, you write that he was not ruthless enough in quashing those who threatened his nation's stability. Do you think he should have been more ruthless?
Yes, I do, particularly in view of the fact that his opponents.
So I love the fact that this reporter just starts out with all these lies, and he says the Shah was a dictator, Savak murdered people, blah blah blah. do you think he was ruthless? And then Nixon, because Nixon is calling out the propaganda, right? So he says, I don't think he was ruthless enough. He says, he just, flat out, the Shah was not ruthless enough. But then he clarifies who he's referring to. And, I actually share the same opinion. Many Iranians share the same opinion. The Shah was not ruthless enough when it came to dealing with the Marxists, the communists, and the Islamists. He unfortunately showed them mercy, and that's what I think was his downfall in the end, because he was not ruthless enough when it came to dealing with Islamic terrorism and that threat to the stability of the society.
He should have been more ruthless.
Yes, I do, particularly in view of the fact that his opponents were not those who were basically more liberal.
Wait, I don't understand why people are calling me racist. I'm speaking about the Iranian Revolution. I'm literally Iranian. You people are insane. Like, oh my gosh. Like the brain, I don't know, like are you guys brain dead or brain rotted or something? Whatever. Honestly, if I got $1 for every single time someone called me racist for speaking about the Iranian Revolution, I would be rich.
Because basically they were reactionary. They were the true reactionaries.
See, so he's saying, Nixon is saying, the Shah was not ruthless enough in dealing with the reactionaries. Who are the reactionaries? They're the communists, the Marxists, and the Islamists, right? Those savages, right? The unholy alliance of the red and black, communism and Islamism. And the Shah was not ruthless enough in dealing with that. And guys, the reason that I'm glad you're here, especially for you non-Iranians, is as an Iranian, I'm warning you. Many of us Iranians are now seeing the same signs, the same patterns of Islamism and communism in your countries. The Islamic Revolution didn't happen overnight. It wasn't like one day people just woke up and decided to overthrow the Shah. This was something that was in the making for 15 years. Like this was in the making since the White Revolution of 1963. So this was a slow boil. It was a slow boil until it got to a point where the Islamists created a false flag event that then pushed people over the edge to destabilize society. And now I'm warning you guys, we're seeing many of the commonalities, right? The same sort of behavior, right? Like look at all of the far left Antifa, communist, socialist people who are joining the Islamists to, free Palestine, right? It's the same dangerous alliance, and they have one goal, that is to destabilize and take over.
Let's look at the Shah for just a moment and look at him very fairly. He actually was a progressive in a number of ways. He instituted a land reform program.
So the land reform program he's referring to is basically getting rid of serfdom. So the previous dynasty, the Qajar dynasty that ruled up until the early 1920s, they were very corrupt. They didn't do anything for Iran. It was very very underdeveloped, poor country. The Qajar dynasty themselves were very rich, but did nothing for the people. And also there was still serfdom. So serfdom is pretty much like legal slavery. So there were still like rich landowners who had serfs. So when Richard Nixon is talking about land reform, he's literally talking about the fact that the Pahlavi dynasty went in, eradicated the serf system, freed the villagers, and then he basically gave them land so that they could be productive members of society. And some people in the elite did not like that, did not like the fact that the Shah was getting rid of their servants and basically getting rid of their slaves and free labor. So they were against him, right? So anyone who's against the Shah, guys, there's a reason for it. It's not out of the blue. It's not because the Shah was a dictator or anything like that. The Shah was literally eradicating poverty and serfdom, right? So when Nixon is talking about land reform, that's what he's referring to in Iran.
He instituted a literacy program. He sent thousands of...
So literacy program, remember? And he's going to send thousands of people to educate. So that's the peace army, right? So if you looked at my previous live stream, in one section of the military parade, you see the Shah's peace army, men and women who were employed to go to various parts of the country to educate people.
Students from Iran.
Here we go.
Thousands of students from Iran to the United States, and particularly the United States, to study, and in other countries as well. He liberated women. The irony was that those he liberated, the women and the students he sent abroad.
So liberating women, yeah, like basically equal rights, and of course giving women the right to vote. The irony is, so he's going to talk about the irony of sending university students off to the United States to be educated, and you know the government of Iran paid for them to go study and become educated. The irony he is going to talk about is that those were the people who came back and joined the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps or whoever. Why? Because those young Iranians, when they went to Western universities, those Western universities were full of academics who were pushing the communism, Islamism, Marxism agenda. So all these young Iranians, you know, go to another country, go to a foreign country, go to the United States, and you know they're there to get a Western education. Turns out the academics are pretty much all communists and socialists, and they're rotting the minds of young people. And then those young Iranians, all of a sudden, right? They're anti-imperialist, and you know they want socialism and communism, right? That's exactly what's happening right now in the United States with your own college students, right? All of these young college students who are suddenly like Antifa or communist or whatever, where do you think they're getting it from? It's that academic rot in the universities. And he's going to talk about that. These university students, so Iranian university students went to the United States to get a Western education. They were indoctrinated by communists and socialists, so they came back, right? Because now all of a sudden they're anti-imperialism, and they viewed the Shah of Iran as an imperialist. Why? Because he was allies with the United States. Like the irony is insane. But that's how the communist ideology works, right? And again, and back in the 70s, it was even more prominent and dangerous because the Soviet was still there, right? So we still had the Soviet bloc, and there was a lot of funding from Russia as well. So you have these Iran university students who basically become useful idiots for the Soviets, and then they go back and they join up with the Islamists, right? So when I talk about the unity of the red and black, right? Red being the communists, black being the Islamists, that's exactly what happened. These young, educated university students were all of a sudden team Islamist, right? It's the exact same reason why the young university students today say that Hamas are freedom fighters and not the Islamic terrorists that they are. It's the exact same thing. Back in 1979, the Iranian university students were corrupted to think that the Islamists were freedom fighters. They were fighting for freedom, right? The exact same narrative, the exact same playbook. Let's go back a little bit.
And the students he sent abroad, they came back and joined the revolutionary forces. And the irony was that the Shah, being progressive, was attacked as being reactionary and conservative on these particular issues, whereas his opponents were the reactionaries.
Right? So the people who were attacking the Shah and accusing him of being oppressive, they were the ones who were actually oppressive, right? The Islamists were the ones who were oppressive. Remember, every single word that comes out of an Islamist's mouth is a lie. Every accusation against the Shah was an admission of guilt for them. And again, Cinema Rex, the biggest example, Cinema Rex, Islamists murdered Iranians and they blamed the Shah. They said the Shah did this, so we need to overthrow the Shah. You can never trust an Islamist. They will literally murder you in the goal of jihad or whatever, right? Because death is a way of life. Like death is part of who they are. Death, martyrdom, all that nonsense, and they are willing to sacrifice you. And you guys are letting these people into your countries. It's a very scary thing.
Putting it very bluntly and very simply, the Shah was trying to move Iran into the 20th century. His opponents, Khomeini et al., wanted to move Iran back into the Dark Ages, and that's what they've done.
And that's exactly what happened. So the Shah was modernizing Iran with the White Revolution, and Khomeini and the Islamists, they wanted to go back to Sharia law. And that's exactly what happened. As soon as the Islamists took over in 1979, they murdered everyone else who had been supporting them. So they basically murdered all of the communists and all the like progressive university students, by the way, who thought that they were fighting imperialism. They were all murdered. They were all murdered. I mean, some of them escaped, went to, claimed refugee status and went somewhere else, but the vast majority of them were murdered, right? It's no different than gays for Gaza or queers for Palestine. What do you think is going to happen to a gay person if they go to Gaza? We've seen it play out before. It happened in Iran.
Into the Dark Ages, and that's what they've done. Now, there was some repression, true. Now there is total repression. There may not have been enough land reform. Now there is none whatever.
See, so people were complaining that there was not enough land reform. So they were complaining that the Shah was not eliminating the serf system fast enough, right? But now, no land reform. Before, people were complaining that, there was oppression, even though there was no oppression. As long as you weren't a communist or an Islamist, you were not oppressed. As long as you were not a terrorist, you lived a free life. Whereas now, and Nixon says it perfectly, after the Islamic Republic took over, it's 100% oppression, right? The country went from a modern secular society to a brutal 7th century Islamic dictatorship governed by Sharia law. It's like overnight, the country went 1400 years back to the 7th century.
What I am simply suggesting is this, that when we look at the Shah, we have to look at him in terms of what he confronted. And he confronted revolutionary forces there that were not working, in my view, for what was best for Iran, and certainly not best.
The revolutionary forces were not working for what was best for Iran because they were funded by the Soviets. The Islamic Revolution, like all those people, were actually funded and trained by the Soviets and also by Yasser Arafat and the Palestinians. So there's another reason why we Iranians don't like Palestinians, because they just cause terrorism everywhere they go.
For ourselves. And most important, from the United States standpoint, instead of having a friend in Iran, we now have one that is not only not a friend, but one that considers us to be the great Satan.
I want to play that again for you Americans, because a lot of Americans do not know this, because this is not taught in the history books. Prior to the Islamic Revolution, prior to Islamic ideology occupying Iran in 1979, Iran and the United States were allies. That is coming from a former American president. Let's listen to that again. So ask yourselves, why did Iran go from an ally of America to calling America the Great Satan? The answer is Islamists. The answer is that Islamic jihadi caliphate, right? Like there is a clash. There is a clash there, a fundamental clash, and these jihadis hate you. And you guys are like importing them en masse into your countries, thinking that they're going to somehow assimilate or integrate. Like it's wild, guys. It's absolutely wild, the suicidal empathy. Because the only thing about Iran that changed before 1979 and after 1979 was Islamic jihadi Sharia law, whatever, right? Like the Islamic Republic came into power. So Iran was never an enemy of the United States. Iran still isn't an enemy. We as Iranians, we love the United States. We have no issue with the United States, right? That's the flag of Iran. That's the flag that's an ally of the United States. Iran is currently occupied by the Islamic Republic. They have a different flag. It says Allahu Akbar on it. I mean, I'm Iranian. I speak Persian. I don't speak Arabic. Arabic is not an official language in Iran, and yet the Islamic colonizers, the Islamic oppressors, changed our flag and replaced it with Arabic writing, right? Like, if that's not Islamic colonization, I don't know what is. Where our flag, it's not my flag, but like the official, unfortunately, the official flag of the country right now is in Arabic writing. And yet we are not Arab, we speak Persian.
Certainly not best for ourselves. And most important from the United States standpoint, instead of having a friend in Iran, we now have one that is not only not a friend, but one that considers us to be the great Satan.
There you go. So there's a really important interview with Richard Nixon. I hope that gives you guys a little bit of context, right? Because I'm gonna play some other interviews now. Super frustrating, but yeah, I hope this gives you guys a bit of an understanding of the kind of nonsense and false narratives that were being pushed by the Islamists and the reporters. The reporters were just eating it up without requiring any proof or any evidence, right? It's very similar to what Hamas is doing, where they claim like, I don't know, 20 million baby journalists were killed or whatever, and everyone like repeats it, and they don't require any proof or anything. Like it's insane. Okay. I before I get to the interviews from the 70s, because the ones from the 70s are more tense, mid to late 70s, that's when there was a lot of tension in Iran. And again, right, the Islamic Revolution didn't happen overnight. It was, a process. It was like a good decade or so. I found an interview from the 60s, so I'm gonna play this. I haven't seen this one. Um, I have a feeling it might be a little bit more lighthearted, but let's see.
You see, I have always been mystical. And I think that I will be around until my time is up, and this has been decided by the God Almighty, in which I believe and many other people in the world believe.
So this looks like an interview with the Shah from happier times, right? So this would have been, I think this was like 1960s. So this is, I think, when the Shah was probably just implementing the White Revolution, which was starting to modernize Iran, right? Like giving women the right to vote and all those things. And so this is probably like before the tension from the Islamists was really known by, but I'm assuming, but let's see.
Tehran, May 1960. The Imperial Guard prepares for the return of the Shah of Persia to his country after a journey around Europe. These men form a key force controlling the capital. They remained loyal to the Shah during the Mossadegh crisis 7 years ago. Iran today is quiet, but in the Middle East, the Guard has always to be ready for trouble.
So this was the Garda Javidan, which is basically like the imperial like elite forces, right? Like these were the top tier.
The dominant personality in Iran is the man who bears the proud title King of Kings, Lord of the Peacock Throne, Shadow of Allah, Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi.
Did you guys catch that? Shadow of Allah. Guys, the Shah was a Muslim. He was Muslim, right? Like the issue has always been Islamic terrorism. So when people are like, "Oh, well, Iran was a, Islamic country." No, Iran was never an Islamic country. People in Iran practiced Islam, they were Muslim, but the society was not governed by Islamic Sharia law. That didn't happen until 1979 when the Islamic extremists came and took over the country. Prior to that, like there were Muslims, there were Jews, like Christians, Baha'is, Zoroastrians. Everyone lived in peace. Everyone lived in harmony because the country was secular. But that was not good enough for the Islamists. The Islamists, they want jihad, they want a global caliphate. So that's that was the tension there. Even the Shah as a Muslim was not good enough for the Islamists because he was not Muslim enough, right? For them, the idea of being Muslim is being like a jihadi who wants to take over the world. So these Islamists are very, very dangerous, right? They're incredibly, incredibly dangerous.
His visit to London a year ago was marked by royal magnificence.
That's him there, see? He was so well dressed.
The guard was more.
And today is his birthday, so happy birthday again, Shahanshah Aryama. Amazing,
Symbolic
great
than
man.
in Tehran. The visit also helped to restore relations which, as the Shah said, had been clouded by misunderstanding. At the City of London, he emphasized that British know-how was playing a notable part in Persian development. This young woman comes into the picture as the new queen, Farah Diba. Again, the trappings of magnificence, this time entirely feminine. A shopping spree at Christian Dior's to choose one of the loveliest and most valuable trousseaux any bride could wish for.
I love this. I love this.
But
The Queen of Iran, she's still alive. She's the Empress. She just turned 87. Such a classy, elegant woman, and she spent a lot of her time um, working on the White Revolution, right? Combating poverty, illiteracy, all of that stuff. Like she was all about empowering women. She does not get enough credit. She's such a hardworking woman, and I will do like a episode on her at some point for sure.
Splendor, the necessity for an heir to maintain a monarchy which has lasted for 2,500 years. The spectacular wedding was held in the Golestan Palace. The wedding dress, white satin trimmed with mink. A Western-style bridal procession, but the ceremony according to Persian custom.
Oh, this was their wedding. I love that.
No monarch in the world personally retains such close control over everything happening in his country.
Guys, do you see this? So, I mean, look at this. These are Iranian women in the 1960s, okay? This is what Iranian women looked like in the 1960s. This pissed off the Islamists, right? They did not like this. When Richard Nixon is talking about the reactionaries were the Islamists. They were not happy that women were dressed like this. They were not happy that the Shah was modernizing Iran. They wanted to go back to like a 7th century Islamic hellhole, and unfortunately that's what they got. But just look at this, and then the next time someone says that like Iran is always like an Islamic country, whatever, like it's utter nonsense. It's pure propaganda. It's pure jihadi propaganda. It's literally taqiyya. And there are so many videos and images to prove it as well.
But it's not roses all the way.
You look at these women.
Many development projects which the Shah has launched must be visited personally. Here he's opening a new bridge.
I love that. Look at that. That was one of the big things. The Shah was really, really focused on industrial development and modernizing and building. So, I mean, bridges, roads, universities, hospitals, like stadiums, anything you can think of, he built, and he built like lots of them. Like he was modernizing Iran all across the country and all at the same time. And like, look at these women. Look at these women. This is what Iranian women looked like in the 1960s, right? Well, this video was filmed in 1960. So this is how Iranian women dressed in 1960. I mean, if I said that this was this was happening in the United States, people like I mean, I would believe it. This doesn't look any different than women in the United States or in Europe or anywhere else, right? This is what Iran was. This is 1960, guys. 1960. And look at what's happened today. The Islamic Republic downgraded Iran. Overnight took our country back 1400 years, turned it into a 7th century Islamic hellhole governed by Sharia law. Again, this is what Iranian women looked like. This is what we want to continue looking like.
The Queen must learn how to use the scissors too. Television is booming in Persia. The Shah drops in for a visit. Don't get up, gentlemen. He's a modern-minded king and wants to know exactly what's going on.
I love this.
A Persian sugar factory, a brand new one. Industry has increased at a fantastic pace. It's part of the plan to combat both.
Do you see that woman? Do you see her? Look how beautiful she is. Do you see any hijab on her? No, of course not.
Poverty and communism. As for the land, the Shah's giving away title deeds to many of his own estates, one way of encouraging the...
Did you catch that? He is literally giving his own, the Shah of Iran, the one that the Islamists accused of being a corrupt dictator and whatever. He's literally giving away pieces of his own land to people. Let's catch this again, because this isn't coming from me. This is a 1960s documentary / interview. This is from 1960.
As for the land, the Shah's giving away title deeds to many of his own estates, one way of encouraging the breakup of the old feudal system. That's
right. So the breakup of the old feudal system, those are the land reforms that Richard Nixon was talking about. The land reforms where he was getting rid of the feudal system, getting rid of the serfdom, and instead encouraging people to be landowners. He was enabling Iranians to be self-sufficient. He literally gave away his own land for the betterment of the country. And yet the Islamists are the ones who call him a dictator. Guys, every accusation against the Shah is an admission of guilt from the Islamists themselves. That's why they continue attacking him. Because they created this false narrative about him that was picked up by the media in order to justify overthrowing him. And it was all part of their taqiyya for the greater global Islamic caliphate.
so long ago, the Queen was a student in Paris. She takes her royal duties seriously, but seems to get some fun out of it as well.
Look at all these Iranian women. Like the Queen of Iran was focused on educating and empowering Iranian women. Look at all these like nursing graduates, your new nursing students. This is what they were doing. Oh, and this pissed off the Islamists, right? The Islamists did not like this because to them, women are second-class citizens. Women should not be working. Women should only be at home, raising babies or whatever and keeping their faces covered. Islamists do not like strong women, so this pissed them off. They did not like seeing Iranian women be educated. I don't know how people can call the Shah a dictator or corrupt when he was literally giving away his own land. And they were working hard. They were investing in the country to educate people, including empowering women.
With borders along the Soviet Union and Iraq and alliances with Western powers, Iran has a delicate balance to maintain. The army is American trained, but the Shah has said, we're giving no military bases to any country. We are a sovereign state and have a great future. Tehran airport 3 weeks ago. A young air hostess tells us who'll be there.
The royal family, prime minister, minister of court, ambassadors, they've come here to welcome him back to Iran. In Farsi, whenever we want to greet the Shah, we speak in a simple language and we say, Ala Hazrata, Khosh Umadin be Iran. Your Highness, welcome to Iran.
Look at that. Not only were Iranians educated, they also spoke English, right? I mean, Guys, I'm telling you, the fact that this young Iranian woman in 1960 um, was educated, had a job, was employed, and had her hair uncovered, that pissed off the Islamists. They did not like that, right? They did not like seeing women educated and empowered. And I'm loving the fact that the Shah was so focused on education that he made sure that Iranians also learn English.
The King of Kings has been to 6 European countries. He escaped assassination in 1949. 4 years later, he was forced into exile during the Mossadegh crisis. Now, although he's in personal control...
Guys, the comments in the chat, the women are of course the women are educated there now. The only reason the women continue to be educated is because of the systems that the Shah implemented, all the universities he built, all the schools he built. He made sure that the literacy rate went up. When the Islamic Republic took over, they tried to discourage Iranian women from going to university. In fact, many of them were barred from going to university. But yeah, Iranian women are 100% educated, not because of the Islamic Republic. They're educated despite the Islamic Republic. There's a difference, guys, okay? They're educated despite the Islamic Republic because the Islamic Republic tried everything in their power to discourage Iranian women from being educated. Even to this day, they're still encouraging young Iranian girls to drop out of school and marry early and have babies instead. Thankfully, in Iranian culture, we treat men and women equally. We also value education. And so these Islamic practices that the Islamic Republic tries to impose on Iranians, it doesn't work because it's not part of our culture. But so for you to say Iranian women are educated today, yes, they're educated despite Sharia law. Look at what's happening in Afghanistan. Look at what's happening in Pakistan and all these other places. The women there, unfortunately, are victims of Sharia law, and in their cultures, for whatever reason, the men aren't standing up to support the women, and so they're all staying at home. Do you not think that the Islamic Republic would want the same in Iran? They tried. They definitely tried to discourage Iranian women from being educated, but Iranian women were having none of that. Iranian women have been fighting the Islamic Republic since they took power in 1979. Right away, the Iranian women were protesting against the mandatory hijab that was introduced in 1979. Okay? There are pictures of that. You can look it up. Look it up. Everything I say, I come with receipts. Look up Iranian women protest hijab 1979. You'll see hundreds of thousands of Iranian women out in 1979 protesting against mandatory hijab because before the Islamic Republic came to power, they said, oh, no, we're not going to impose Sharia law on anyone. We're not going to impose Islam on anyone. Everyone's going to be free to live their lives however they want. Iranians trusted the Islamists, and as soon as the Islamists got into power, they murdered everyone who spoke out against them. When Iranian women went out to protest, they were beaten, tortured, raped, and executed. That happened in 1979, and it's been happening ever since. So, guys, you think Mahsa Amini is new? No. What happened to Mahsa Amini in 2022 is unfortunately just one of hundreds of thousands of Iranian women who have been murdered, being tortured, raped, murdered by the Islamic Republic for one reason or another. It started as soon as they took over. You guys just didn't know about it because there was no social media for Iranians to be able to share what was happening with the rest of the world. So, don't come in the chat and say Iranian women are still educated. Yeah, they're educated despite the Islamic Republic, not because of it. The Islamic Republic has not contributed a single positive thing to Iran or to the world. The Islamic Republic is a parasite. The only reason that we're not like Afghanistan is because Iranian women, I think maybe stronger fighters. Also, Iran was more established as a secular country, and all of those reforms that the Shah had done at the time, they stuck.
He returns to a time of general elections and party rivalries.
Oh my gosh, did you guys hear that? So to everyone who says that the Shah was a dictator, how can a dictatorship have elections? Can someone answer me that? Because one of the false narratives that people like the Islamists and communists love to push is that the Shah was a dictator, blah blah blah. If he was a dictator, how the hell were there elections happening in Iran? No one ever asks that question. No one ever actually goes and looks up the fact that Iran was a constitutional monarchy. No one ever bothers to look up the 1906 constitutional revolution.
Welcome to Iran.
The King of Kings has been to 6 European countries. He escaped assassination in 1949. 4 years later, he was forced into exile during the Mossadegh crisis. Now, although he's in personal control, he returns to a time of general elections and party rivalries. Members of the Senate in a polite and formal line, the diplomatic corps. The British ambassador, Sir Geoffrey Harrison.
Can we just take a moment to appreciate how well dressed everyone is? Like just classy, elegant, well dressed. A huge difference from like the way Islamists and jihadis dress, right? Like it's just night and day, night and day.
The Summer Palace, Tehran, a few days later. An important date for roving report. The visitor is expected, but no protocol here, no striped trousers and top hats, just an informal chat in the garden, where the King and Queen normally have lunch. The only music, the cool fountains on the lawn. A contrast of fierce sunlight and deep shade. Queen Farah Diba replied in French, in much better French than mine. First, I asked Her Majesty about the child she's expecting, and whether she was in good health.
Oui, j'attends avec joie la naissance d'un enfant. Je suis en très bonne santé.
You know what's wild? The Shah and Empress of Iran were so educated, they spoke multiple languages. The current Islamic Republic, you know, the people who are there responsible for everything, they're so uneducated, they're so inbred. Not only can they not speak English, they can barely speak Farsi. Like it's just the level of education is night and day, you guys, night and day.
Est-ce que Votre Majesté a beaucoup de choses à faire avec des organisations? And then the Queen told me something about her work with women's social and welfare organizations in Persia.
Je suis très intéressée au développement des questions sociales.
I'm very interested in social questions, and above all, in the education and emancipation of Iranian women.
Do you hear that, guys? So the Queen, the Empress of Iran, she's still alive, by the way, she's 87. Her big focus was education and emancipation of women. Does that sound like a corrupt dictatorship to you? One that wants to educate and advance women's rights? Do you see the lies that the Islamists have been putting out there for years and years and years? What kind of dictator builds 4,000 schools a year to educate people, not just men, women?
Je crois que l'Iran devait considérer ce
I think my country should consider this problem very closely, because it's really thanks to these women that society has men who are well educated, capable, and patriotic.
Éduqués et patriotes. J'espère que le développement des organisations.
I hope that the development of training schools for girls, training schools for nurses, and welfare associations could help materially this fulfillment of the women of Iran.
Dirigée par la femme iranienne pourront contribuer à l'épanouissement et à la formation de ces femmes iraniennes. Et de mon côté, je suis très intéressée par ces
I'm
problèmes.
personally very interested in these problems, and whenever the need arises, I'll do my best to help.
Je pourrais leur prêter mon aide et mon assistance.
Madame, vous avez été très gentille. Merci beaucoup.
Your Imperial Majesty, may I first say how honored I am for you to receive me here today.
If it is permitted, might I be allowed to discover something about Your Majesty yourself? For instance, I hear that you are writing your autobiography. Is this true?
Yes, this is true. I hope the book.
Someone asked if she was French. No, she was Iranian. She was 100% Iranian. She's still, I mean, she's alive still. But I mean, she learned French. You know, the Shah of Iran spoke several languages. So did the Empress. French was one of them.
Could be published in the fall.
Do you feel impelled to take any special precautions towards your personal safety?
They want me to, but I don't know how. You see, I have always been.
Oh. Yeah, Omid, you're absolutely right. His son, the current Shah of Iran in exile, he also speaks French fluently, and he actually did a press conference in the summer where he fielded questions from reporters in English, French, and Farsi all at the same time. Highly educated family.
Mystical, and I think that I will be around until my time is up, and this has been decided by the God Almighty, in which I believe and many other people in the world believe. But I suppose guards and other services are taking protections because that's their duty. But personally, I don't know how to take protection.
I know too, sir, that you're a great lover of sport of all sorts. Do you still find time to take part in many of these things?
Yes, I still can find some time, especially in summertime. I hope to start soon the tennis season. And I'm going to the Caspian Sea in a week time. There we are going to enjoy swimming and water skiing. It's very pleasant.
Does aviation, sir, still come into your program?
Yes, it does. I'm flying as much as I can, although...
Someone in the chat asked me if I speak Farsi. The answer is yes, I do speak Farsi.
It's not as much as I would like to, but whenever I fly, I'm doing the flying.
In 1958, at a press conference in Tehran, you said, "I need 10 years to turn my country into a model state." Can you tell us something about the progress in the last 2 years?
I think we can say that we are satisfied with the progress of this program. During that time, we passed through our parliament a law.
Did you guys hear that? He's talking about the parliament, right? In Farsi, we call it the majlis. So again, I don't know what sort of dictator has a parliament, but there you go.
For agrarian reform. Now we have a limitation on land ownership. And we have also passed very up-to-date and modern labor laws. We are even giving government land to the workers for them to build houses and many other facilities. And we admit that in many technical fields we are behind. And because we have no complex, we can accept the know-how and the help of other advanced countries, and we also encourage their investment here.
We then turned to Iran's foreign relations, and the Shah answered a question about CENTO, the Central Treaty Organization, and Mr. Selwyn Lloyd's recent statement that the détente, the easing of tensions between states, must be indivisible.
Well, I think that Mr. Selwyn Lloyd is quite right in saying so, because as peace is indivisible, so is the détente. You cannot switch your pressure from one place to another and having peace and calm and security in the world. If there must be peace, it must be everywhere.
In a few weeks, there are to be general elections in Iran, sir. Could you give us some information about them?
Yes, as I stated 2 days ago, these will be absolutely free elections. And I even said that the elections will be as free as you have them in your country or in America or in France or other democratic countries. But we have 2 political parties, and obviously a political party has machinery which is powerful, and it is usually more powerful than single contenders. But we are going to accept gladly the result of the people's choice.
Your Majesty, you've been most kind to answer these questions so frankly for the British audience. Thank you very much.
Been glad to be once again in contact with the British audience, the British people who are our friend and ally.
Wow. So there's an interview with the Shah of Iran at the time, from 1960. Those were happier times. Those were happier times. The next interview is going to be from the mid 1970s. So this is already, when the tension with the Islamists has begun. Because, guys, again, the Islamic Revolution did not happen overnight. It was a slow process that took about 15 years, starting with the White Revolution. Again, the White Revolution was a top-down approach from the Shah and Empress of Iran at the time. You just saw them here. So, where are they? Let me get like a shot here. There we go. There you go. So, the Shah and Empress. All right, I can't find it. Anyway, so they implemented the White Revolution, which was a top-down approach to modernizing Iran. That's when the tensions with the Islamists started. So that's when the Islamists started their grumbling. And then initially they were ignored. And, as President Nixon said, the Shah was not ruthless enough with them, right? Because the Shah was a progressive. He was progressive. He believed in freedom of, speech and all that stuff. Initially anyway, right? And then it got to a point where the communists and Islamists were destabilizing Iranian society. And then eventually, by the time things got super heated up, it was too late to do anything about it. So for those of you watching this, pay attention to what the communists and the Islamists are doing in your own countries, because what you're seeing today is similar to what was happening in Iran in the 1960s, leading up to the 70s, and then leading up to the Islamic Revolution. It did not happen overnight, guys. It was a slow buildup. So that was 1960. Let's now go to, this is an interview. I think this is like the early 70s. I think it's like 1974 maybe. And just look at the difference. Look at the difference with the reporter, with the tension. And look at, anyways, let's just watch this.
Well, obviously, for us, there is absolutely no room for establishing an empire through military conquest. This is out of the question. This is ridiculous. So to regain the greatness of Iran could only be done in the human aspect of our past, to revive it.
Okay, Kamal. So this is the thing. Like, you have the Islamists come into the chat and they say Iran was historically Islamic. There was nothing Islamic about Iran. I've shown the videos in this chat. I've shown the videos in this live feed. We literally just played videos of what Iran looks like prior to Islamic Sharia law coming in and turning the country into 7th century Islamic hellhole. So take the taqiyya elsewhere, because it doesn't fly. It doesn't work, right? We literally have facts and evidence in this chat. So, I mean, to say that, Iran was a Muslim country, no, there were Muslims in Iran. The Shah himself, he was a Muslim, but he was secular, because there was a separation of mosque and state. And that's why Iran was modernizing, because religion was a private thing. So anyone who says that, oh, Iran was a Muslim country, you have no idea what you're talking about.
And to take the best out of the thought of our forefathers, and being a prosperous country, a happy society based on social justice, that is our today's creation, and marrying today with the past, presenting something for ourselves, and if it is appealing for others to look at.
There are some of Your Majesty's critics who say there is a rigorous censorship in Iran. What would Your Majesty's opinion be to this?
Again, what kind of censorship?
So pay attention. So this is one of the lies that the Islamists were propagating, right? They were saying there's censorship in Iran, but they never explained what they meant or who they were talking about, but they would just complain, and then, the reporters would say, like, did you just see, like, there's censorship in Iran? And the Shah's like, what are you talking about? Like, what kind of censorship? Listen to what the reporter says. I want you to pay attention. The questions that the reporter asks throughout this entire interview, he never has a shred of evidence. He never has anything to back up his claims. It's all basically just like, all his questions are based off of like word of mouth and rumor, right? There's no evidence of anything of any sort that the journalist can point to back up anything he's saying, including this thing about censorship.
If there was the daily criticism against our shortages, our weaknesses, and this and that, it's even encouraged. If the criticism is directed against the foundation of the state and to weakening of the state and serving the interests of a foreign country, obviously we are not going to allow that. Why should we?
Boom. Did you catch that? Did you catch that? He's basically saying if foreign actors want to come in and criticize for the purpose of destabilizing the country, of course we're going to censor it. Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we? Meanwhile, you have the useful idiots in the West who are literally burning the flags of your countries, doing it doing it under the guise of like freedom of expression, destabilizing your countries. Those criticisms are dangerous. Those criticisms in the 1970s led to the Islamic Revolution. Those criticisms led to the destabilization of the country. And then the Islamists took over and turned Iran into a 7th century Islamic hellhole. And he makes it very clear. If it's a foreign, if the criticism serves a foreign interest, of course we're going to shut it down. Why wouldn't we? Like, it's very logical and rational, of course. Let's go back and listen to that again, because I even agree with this. Oh, and by the way, a country in Europe, I can't remember, a country recently in Europe banned communism. Do you know that? Which one was it? Let me look it up here. It was just recent too. Czech Republic. The Czech Republic just recently, in its legislation, passed a motion to ban the promotion of communist ideology. So the Czech Republic, a democratic state with a democratically elected government, is now banning communism because they recognize the inherent danger of allowing certain rhetoric to exist in society. Communism being one of them, Islamism being the other, right? That's what the Shah is referring to. So the Shah already had the foresight back in the 1970s to try and shut down that communist and Islamist narrative. And only now, 50 years later, other countries are waking up to that and realizing the danger that this ideology poses in destabilizing Western society.
The criticism against our shortages, our weaknesses, and this and that, it's even encouraged. If the criticism is directed against the foundation of the state and to weakening of the state and serving the interests of a foreign country, obviously we are not going to allow that. Why should we? Those
I
who
agree.
have done
I
it,
agree.
what advantage have they got from that?
But freedom.
So true. He's basically saying, so those who have tolerated communist and Islamist ideology, what advantage have they gotten from that? What advantage do you guys, so let me ask you a question. What advantage do you have in your countries right now allowing the pro-Hamas people to yell, globalize the Intifada? What advantage do you have in your countries for allowing people to block intersections and yell Allahu Akbar? Has there been any advantage or net positive benefit to allowing these Islamists and communists in your countries destabilize your society? Of course not.
Freedom of opinion in any country and being able to criticize the existing organizations is a fundamental principle of democracy. And if Iran lays
let's go back to this, because now the reporter's trying to so the reporter is basically saying
opinion in any.
So look, the Shah says one thing and the reporter says something completely different. The Shah basically says, if you want to criticize, the day-to-day functions of the government or whatever, go for it, have at it. I encourage that. He literally says, I encourage criticism. But he says, if your criticisms are coming from a place of malice, a place of ill intention, if your criticism is coming with the purpose of destabilizing society in order to take over, of course I'm going to stop that, because that is not fair criticism. That is an invasion. And now this idiotic reporter says, well, criticizing is part of democracy.
Country and being able to criticize.
Okay, let's go back to that.
Okay. Those who have done it, what advantage have they got from that?
But freedom of opinion in any country and being able to criticize the existing organizations is a fundamental principle of democracy. And if Iran lays claim to democracy, then these principles should be honored.
Yes, within the limit of the law. It depends what kind of laws you have. Within the limit of existing laws, obviously. One of our laws is that communism is not allowed.
Communism was banned. Czech Republic just banned communism. The Shah was literally 50 years, 60 years ahead of his time. He was 60 years ahead of his time. He banned communism. And all those people who were accusing the Shah of being a dictator and, censorship is because they were not allowed to spread communist ideology. Is the Czech government today a dictatorship for banning communism? Can anyone answer? Is the Czech government right now a dictatorship because they have banned the promotion of communist ideology? And if the answer is no, then what about the Shah? He banned communism because he recognized the threat and danger of communism. And in fact, it ended up, communism is what ended up supporting the Islamists to overthrow the Shah and turn Iran into a 7th century Islamic hellhole. And I'm glad people in the chat are saying no, of course. So Czech Republic was not a dictator, but yet somehow there's a different standard for the Shah. The Shah was a dictator for banning communism. No, the man was a genius. He was super intelligent and he was ahead of his time. He banned communism because he recognized the inherent threat of the Soviets at the time. Again, remember, this is the early to mid 1970s. The Soviets were still very much in power.
Banned. So one of our laws is that communism is not allowed.
I support that.
It's banned, so you can't do it.
But could a journalist in Iran dare to criticize His Majesty?
He could, but I don't think that he would.
The danger for this nation is, should something happen to this person, that nation might crumble. Do you see such a danger for Iran?
Well, I was trying to touch this subject, that the structure, the smooth running engine is the structure of the country. We have a political party. We have the people participating in the affairs of the country, be it their daily routine affairs or even political one, starting down from the village level up to the two houses of parliament, with village councils, city councils, provincial councils, and so on and so on.
Again, does that sound like a dictatorship to you, where the Shah is literally enabling people to get involved and become civically engaged? Like the lies the Islamists put out and still put out are wild, right? And they have nothing to back it up, nothing to back it up. It's just like, a few buzzwords here and there. But when you actually dive in and look at what he's saying, it's the exact opposite.
With a party which is really now englobing the whole of our population.
But there's only one party which is allowed in Iran.
Yes, but in that party, all shades of opinions are represented. Absolutely. That is why, for instance, in the past elections, instead of the party presenting one candidate for each constituency, presented 3, 4, 5 candidates for one constituency. And the people could choose among the 5. And that's why we had the most representative elections we ever had in our history.
Your Majesty had some misunderstanding with the religious leaders in the course of your reforms. Does Your Majesty think that the Islamic religion is a hindrance to your reform plans? Or has it been in the past?
I don't think so. Not Islam. The priests, some of them, yes. But you can say that of all.
Okay, so this is important. Again, remember, the Shah is a Muslim himself, right? But he's a secular Muslim, like normal Muslim, right? He's not like the jihadi, Allah Akbar, like blow people up Muslim. Those are the ones that took over our country in 1979. So he makes a very important point. He says, it's not the religion that's the problem, because he's Muslim himself. It's some of the clerics, right? So he's being very, very politically correct right now. Why? Because there's a lot of tension within Iran, and these Islamic clerics are out to get him. So he's literally trying to calm the waters here. So when Richard Nixon said in the first interview we watched together, when Richard Nixon said the Shah was not ruthless enough, this, I kind of wish he was a little bit stronger. I wish he was a little bit stronger, but the reality is that no one really knew the kinds of evil demonic creatures the Ayatollahs were. People thought that they were just rational, normal human beings that could be reasoned with, not like, evil demons from the pits of hell come to murder and torture Iranians. Let's go back a little bit. I want to listen to his answer again.
Of your reforms. Does Your Majesty think that the Islamic religion is a hindrance to your reform plans? Or has it been in the past?
I don't think so. Not Islam. The priests, some of them, yes. But you can say that of all religions. all reformers in the world had to deal with the church, with the clergy, starting from way back in Europe, before the Renaissance, and then you always had that clash between reform and church. But here we have not anything organized as the church. There are some isolated priests with whom I had to take some strong measures.
The measures that he took were not strong enough. The measures he took were not strong enough. This is what President Nixon is talking about when he says the Shah was not ruthless enough. If the Shah had nipped those Islamic terrorists in the bud before they gained power, before they were able to constantly just like promote their lies, maybe the revolution would have never happened. Maybe the Islamic terrorists would never have gained so much strength to take control of Iran and turn our country into an Islamic hellhole governed by Sharia law. It's really difficult watching this because we all know what the outcome is. And this right here, this was, guys, this was 6 years before. This was 5 or 6 years before the Islamic Revolution. So again, the Islamic Revolution didn't happen overnight. It was something that took almost 15 years of slow tension buildup, right? So this is about sort of the halfway point. This is the halfway point where, you know, reporters are kind of hearing things. They don't really know what's going on. You know, they're asking him about like oppression or whatever, and he's answering very clearly and concisely. Like, there is not a single thing that he has said so far to make me think that he is corrupt or dictator or anything in any way, shape, or form, right? And the reporter even asks him, he's talking about the Shah's reforms. Those reforms were the White Revolution, right? The reforms to modernize Iran, to bring Iran forward. Those are the reforms he's talking about. And he says, do these reforms to modernize Iran clash with Islam? And he says, well, you know, not really. There are some, you know, that I've had to deal with, but I think he should have dealt with them harder. But again, you know, hindsight is 2020. So guys, for what it's worth, at the very least, learn from the mistake that we Iranians made, because we are still paying for it with blood. We are paying for it with our lives. They, like, these Islamists murder us every day in the name of Allah and jihad and whatever. Let's go back a little bit.
But here we have not anything organized as the church. There are some isolated priests with whom I had to take some strong measures.
Would Your Majesty say that there is still opposition to you, be it religious opposition, be it communistic opposition?
Communistic, very much, every day more.
See, so literally, the unholy alliance of the red and black, the Islamist opposition and the communist opposition. That's exactly what you see in Western countries today, right? Like all those like pro-Hamas, you know, free Palestine, whatever people. It's the communists and the Islamists that are coming together. That's exactly what was happening in Iran in the 1970s.
And a very, very funny thing developing now is what the Marxist organization, which has a label of Islamic Marxists. This is something quite new. Yes, definitely. I think the more we have success, the more desperate they become, and they try to do what they can against us. The future of Iran is to give the world what spiritually we can give. Either what we develop today, the social justice that we are developing today, going very, very, very far without infringing upon the liberties of the individual and without killing the incentive, but at the same time going very far in the repartition of wealth in a just and good way. So we might present.
So when he's speaking about the partition of wealth, that's the land reform. Remember the land reforms that he was speaking about earlier? And also when we saw in that 1960s documentary, the Shah in the 60s was literally giving away pieces of his own land to people in order to help them become self-sufficient. So the land reform he's speaking about was getting rid of that feudal system where you had these lords, and then they owned all of these serfs who worked the land for free. So the Shah basically freed all of the serfs, gave them their own land. The feudal lords didn't like that, and so they accused him of being a dictator. Why? He was a dictator because he freed the slaves, he freed the serfs, right? The Shah was loved. The Shah is still loved by his people. Like today is his birthday, God bless his soul. My timeline, like my feed on X, is just one post after another of the Shah. Like every single Iranian is tweeting about his birthday, multiple pictures, multiple posts. We love him. We love him so, so much. And unfortunately, the world did him dirty. Like they smeared him. They're still trying to smear him, but guys, the truth is there, and the truth is undeniable. And we are getting the facts out there. The facts out there. And this interview is one of them.
Some kind of a new solution between capitalism and communism. It's not because we have done it that I say that, but just wait a few years and you will have to take another look into that. This is on the social side and the new materialistic philosophy. But we can also present to you the old philosophy of our forefathers, which was, we think, beautiful, and from which we can learn. So in building a strong society on those bases, first of all, we are trying to serve our own country first, then our region, then eventually be a good partner for the rest of the...
There you go. I mean, the interview speaks for itself, right? It speaks for itself, and it basically just rips apart all of the accusations that were made against him and are still being made against him. All right, so this is another one.
The Shah of Iran was unusually and refreshingly open in several interviews. When I used a phrase he didn't like, he clearly enjoyed the chance to throw it back at me.
As you know, I have been across the Gulf that you call Persian and they call Arabian. Why do you...
Okay, so this is a good one. This is a good one. One of my favorite interviews. Like the Shah, he is just like a no nonsense kind of person, and he will call out all sorts of idiocy, but he does it in a very, very polite and professional manner. Like just watch it.
He clearly enjoyed the chance to throw it back at me.
As you know, I have been across the Gulf that you call Persian and they call Arabian.
Why do you call it Gulf? You have been to school, haven't you?
Yes.
What was the name that you have read during your school days?
Persian Gulf.
All right.
But they do call it Arabian Gulf.
Well, they can do many things.
None of the Shah's comments raised hackles like his blast at the American Jewish lobby. Its influence, he claimed, went all the way to the top.
Surely, Your Majesty, you're not telling me that the Jewish lobby in the United States pulls the strings of the presidency?
Not entirely, but I think even a little too much, even for Israel interests.
You think the Jewish lobby in the United States is too powerful for the interests of Israel?
I think so. Sometimes they are disserving the interests of Israel because they're pushing around too many people.
Why would the president of the United States...
So the reason I'm playing this, okay, the reason I'm playing this is because a lot of the Islamists take this clip out of context, right? They take a part of it and they say, oh, look, he was complaining about the Jewish lobby. What the Shah is saying is that sometimes the Jewish lobby in America works against the interests of Israel. They're two completely separate things, right? And it's a very nuanced argument. And yet people take this completely out of context. So see, this is how the Islamists lie. They take a sound bite, they play it out of context, and then they say, oh, the Shah hated Israel. No, the Shah is not actually criticizing Israel. Iran and Israel were very, very strong allies. Iran, in fact, was the second country to recognize Israel officially as a state. The Shah never criticized Israel. He's criticizing an American lobby group, and he's saying that in his opinion, because he was asked about it, he's saying, in my opinion, I think that this American lobby group sometimes works against the interests of Israel. And yet the Islamists are taking this out of context to say Israel pulls the strings because they conveniently edit out the part. They conveniently edit out the part where he says they're not working to the advantage of Israel. Like they're conflating. The Islamists and communists are inflating or conflating the two issues, right? He's speaking about an American lobby group, and the Islamists claim that he's criticizing Israel when it's two completely separate things, right? Let's go back and listen to this again, guys. Pay attention, because he actually says they're not working for it. Like he's saying that this isn't helping Israel.
Pulls the strings of the presidency.
Not entirely, but I think even a little too much, even for Israel interests.
You think the Jewish lobby in the United States is too powerful for the interests of Israel?
See, so usually they'll clip out the part where it says for the interests of Israel because the reporter pauses, right? So they take out that part, and then it's just like, yes, yes, right? So they take out that nuance. And so people think the Shah was speaking out against Israel. Absolutely not. Iran and Israel were close allies like that. Guys, he was probably saying this because he was concerned, I guess, about the negative impact that it was having on Israel at the time, right? So, I mean, I don't know because I wasn't there, but there was something happening there, right? Like, this is not a criticism of Israel. It's not a criticism of Israel's right to exist. And he's certainly not saying that Israel controls America. He never said that. It's like two completely separate entities. And yet the Islamists will, you can see in the chat, they're screeching, right? Because they've never seen the full version of this interview.
I think so. Sometimes they are disserving the interests of Israel because they're pushing around too many people.
Why would the President of the United States pay attention to that lobby?
They are strong.
Strong in what sense?
They are controlling many things.
Controlling what?
Newspapers, medias,
Your Majesty.
Banks, finances, and I'm going to stop there.
Well, now.
See, so again, he's speaking about an American lobby group, okay? He's speaking about an American lobby group, and yet the Islamists and the communists and the anti-Semites take this clip, edit it out of context, and they make it sound like he's talking about Israel. And then they use this clip to say the Shah of Iran said Israel controls the newspapers in America. It's literally the farthest thing from the truth. But again, this is how these people operate. Islamists lie. It's taqiyya. You can never trust a word that comes out of their mouths. Guys, you cannot.
Wait just a second. You really do believe that the Jewish community in the United States is that powerful? They make the media reflect their view of foreign policy?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They do not report? We do not report honestly?
Don't mix things, please. I don't say the media. I say in the media they have people. Not the entire media. Some newspapers will only reflect their views, yes.
And I mean, that's a fair comment to make. If you look at what's happening right now in American media, right, there are influencers, there are reporters who are literally mouthpieces for the Islamic Republic, right? They are literally paid propagandists for the Islamic Republic. Currently, right now, the Islamic Republic lobby group called NIAC is incredibly powerful when it comes to the Democrats, right? And everyone's entitled to an opinion And that's his opinion of, the lobby group in the United States at that time. But again, this has nothing to do with Israel itself. He even says that this was detrimental, in his opinion, to Israel. Again, everyone is entitled to their opinions. And yet the Islamists take this clip, okay, they take this clip and they edit it around and they make it sound like Israel's controlling American media. And even he even says, no, that's not what I said, right? He said, don't conflate the issue. He's saying, I'm saying there are certain people in the media who are a mouthpiece. And that's true of any country. Qatar has so many mouthpieces in the media right now. Like Mehdi Hassan is the biggest mouthpiece for Qatar right now. We also don't know the conversation before this clip, right? We don't actually know what the topic was that led to this particular line of questioning. So I find it very disingenuous that it's just this particular clip, because this didn't come out of the blue. They were obviously talking about something, right? They were talking about something which then led to this particular topic. But again, the Shah makes it very clear. He's not talking about Israel, okay? And then when he's referring to the Jewish lobby, he's saying that there are some people in the media, not all, and yet the Islamists are coming out and saying, oh, look, the Shah said Israel controls them. Do you see how they lie? Do you see how they take little snippets here and there to make up with a false story, a false narrative? That's how the Islamists operate. They take legitimate, valid criticism, they conflate the issue, and then they say Israel bad. And he never once said that. Let's go back. I want to listen to this part again. Because this is one of those interview clips that the jihadis constantly use to justify attacking Jewish people and attacking Israel. And it's like the farthest thing from the truth of what he actually said, which is a very nuanced argument. And guys, you should hear what he says about Palestinians. With Palestinians, he goes all out. Like, he literally calls Palestinians terrorists, right? He literally calls Palestinians terrorists, which they are, 100% they are. And he has no criticism for Israel. He's not even speaking about Israel. He's speaking about the Jewish lobby. And he's entitled to his opinion.
The Jewish lobby in the United States pulls the strings of the presidency.
Here we go. Let's see
the Jewish lobby.
Okay.
None of the Shah's comments.
Oh, sorry. I just noticed this. Thank you, Raiders, so much. I appreciate the support. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I was just gonna watch these interviews on my own, but I'm glad that you guys are here so we can watch it together and I can bounce, my thoughts, off of you guys and get your input as well. And yeah, normally I would just be watching these interviews on my own, but I'm glad to share them with you. We can watch them together.
His hackles like his blast at the American Jewish lobby. Its influence, he claimed, went all the way to the top.
Surely.
Okay, so again, American Jewish lobby, nothing to do with Israel, literally no connection to Israel whatsoever.
Your Majesty, you're not telling me that the Jewish lobby in the United States pulls the strings of the presidency.
Not entirely, but I think even a little too much, even for Israel interests.
You think the Jewish lobby in the United States is too powerful for the interests of Israel?
I think so. Sometimes they are disserving the interests of Israel because they're pushing around too many people.
Why would the President of the United States pay attention to that lobby?
They are strong.
Strong in what sense?
They are controlling many things.
Controlling what?
Newspapers, medias,
Your Majesty.
Banks, finances, and I'm going to stop there.
Well, now wait just a second. You really do believe that the Jewish community in the United States is that powerful? They make the media reflect their view of foreign policy?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They do not report, we do not report honestly?
Don't don't mix things, please. I don't say the media. I say in the media they have people. Not the entire media. Some newspapers will only reflect their views, yes.
No. The New York Times, for instance, is owned by the Sulzberger family, who are Jewish. Are you suggesting that the New York Times is biased in its treatment of the question of Zionism, Israel's existence, the United States' relationship with the Arab world?
I will have to put all the articles of the New York Times written on this subject and draw the conclusion. You can put this to the computer and it will answer you.
What you're saying is that, yes, you do believe.
Well, let's wait for the answer of the computer.
Washington Post.
The same.
The networks.
Less.
I must say you are speaking with your characteristic candor.
Yes, if you like. I try to be candid. I have always been.
You're saying you do what?
So that was the one thing about him. He always spoke his mind. And again, you should hear what he said about Palestinians. Like he does not hold back there whatsoever. Basically calls them all like a terrorist society, which they are. I mean, let's be fair, they are. But it's interesting. So for him, he's criticizing people. He's basically criticizing Americans, and yet the Islamists take that out of context and they claim that the Shah of Iran hated Israel because he said that Israel controls the American media. Do you see how these lies are created when he literally did not say that at all? It had nothing to do with Israel. It had nothing to do with, nothing to do with Israel, by the way, right? And he makes that very clear. He's saying that these people sometimes are working, in his opinion, to the detriment of Israel. So a very nuanced political argument, but unfortunately, there are a lot of low IQ Islamists who basically just look for sound bites so they can use. They look for sound bites that they can, use to promote their jihad. And these people are not sophisticated enough to understand the nuanced argument that the Shah of Iran, who's a very, very highly educated, highly knowledgeable individual, is making. And they just, they have like a kindergarten level education of political nuances. And, Major, you make a very good point. Pay attention to Wallace's questions. This is how to entrap someone in their words, especially when English is not their first language. 100%. I mean, the Shah had no problem speaking English or French. He spoke several languages, but you're 100% right. Wallace kept on trying to conflate the issue, and the Shah himself was like, that's not what I meant. And he said, don't confuse what I'm saying. And then he had to clarify several times because you're right, the media was trying to entrap the Shah into saying what they wanted him to say, right?
Every country does.
Sure.
If torture is necessary, you torture.
Okay, so again, this is the frustrating line of questioning coming from these reporters, right? So they are getting these like wild reports from the Islamists and the communists. This is where the narrative of the Shah was a dictator and he murdered hundreds of thousands of Iranians. Guys, I'm still waiting for someone in the chat to give me the name of one innocent Iranian that was tortured or killed by the Shah. If you guys can give me one name, I'll be happy. But everyone always says the Shah was a dictator and he tortured people. Where are the photos? Where are the names? Where are the documentation to back this up? I'm telling you guys, it does not exist. These are the way, like this is how Islamists lie, right? They lie about everything.
You're saying you do what every country does.
Sure.
If torture is necessary, you torture.
Not the torture in the old sense of torturing people, twisting their arms and doing this and that. But there are intelligent ways of questioning now.
Well, they talk about psychological and physical torture.
Physical, I don't believe.
I talk...
Not anymore. Maybe in the old days, maybe.
I talked just today to a man whom I believe, who told about torture.
So his source, he spoke to a man who he believes, right? Because his source is trust me, bro. No possibility that the guy he spoke to was lying. No possibility that the guy was an Islamist or a communist and had an agenda, right? All he says is, I spoke to a man and I believe him because source, trust me, bro. This is the constant smear campaign that the Islamists and communists used against the Shah for decades. Well, not for decades, for years, right? And it's absolutely ridiculous that Wallace just believes the guy. You know, he spoke with someone, he believes them, must be true. And just look at the Shah's face. The Shah's looking at Wallace like, are you an idiot?
Whom I believe, who told about torture.
He was tortured?
Yes.
And you believe that he was tortured?
Yes.
How many years ago?
Within, I want to be very careful, not yesterday.
Ah, well, maybe. I don't know.
The word has gone out to stop it.
To stop what?
Torture.
But a long time ago, yes.
But the victims of Savak knew better.
They would tie the hands and feet. And there would be some sort of a hood that would be placed on their head.
So this is where all the lies came, right? This is where all the lies started. Those pictures you saw, we don't know who those people are. I have no idea their names, their faces, nothing. We have no idea what happened to them. It's literally just random people who are injured and they took photos and then they sent it. And then now this guy's gonna like come up with like this ridiculous story. Guys, I forget what he's gonna say, but I have to warn you. They also claimed that the Shah of Iran and Savak would torture political dissidents by putting them in the cages of bears and the bears would rape them. That was one of the stories that the Islamists put out, that they were raped by bears. The bears were trained by Savak and then they were raped. That's the level of idiocy that the Shah of Iran was dealing with. And that's also the level of barbarity and savagery, right? Like you have to be really sick in the head to even come up with this insane narrative and claim that you were raped by bears. But that's who these people are.
Such that whenever they would scream, it would echo in their head. And then they would whip you at the bottom of the sole of your feet with the electrical cords.
I had said on some previous occasions that we needed 10 years here to try to make this country a kind of a model state, a country where absolute justice will prevail, not only in the courts, but social justice too.
Iran was a dubious democracy, with the Shah as king, the grantor of all.
Did you hear that? So the proof that they had was a random guy, we don't even know who the hell that guy is, just saying, oh, this is what they did. They tortured me and they whipped my feet with cables. And anyone who says that Savak was brutal, show me proof, show me evidence. Give me the name of one person, one innocent person who was tortured or murdered by Savak. You can't find it. You can't find it. They basically had these like fake confessions. Like how is this guy, guys, look at this. This guy with like the fake testimony, how is this any different than all those like, Palestinians in Gaza who claim that they've been injured or whatever, and then as soon as the cameras are turned off, they get their money and they go about their lives, right? It's the same jihadi propaganda. It's the same MO. Islamists and communists, this is what they have been trained to do. It's part of the Soviet propaganda disinformation networking campaign. You sit there with a sad look on your face, I was tortured, right? But no proof whatsoever. No proof whatsoever. It's the same thing that the Palestinians are doing. And people still fall for it. They still fall for it, unfortunately, with no shred of evidence, nothing. It's so frustrating because this person here with the fake testimony, he's the real savage. He's the one who ends up taking over Iran, turning it into a 7th century Islamic hellhole, and then he's the one that murders Iranians.
That would be placed on their head such that whenever they would scream, it would echo.
So did you say, so basically he said they would put a hood over your head so when it screamed, it would echo. It's the most ridiculous, stupid thing I've ever heard.
And then they would whip you at the bottom of the sole of your feet with the electrical.
Oh, this is what I want to show you. Do you see this? Do you see the woman next to him? Do you see how she's dressed? Those are like, those are Islamists. Those are Islamists, right? So these are the people who had an agenda. These were the people that wanted to overthrow the Shah and turn Iran into a 7th century Islamic hellhole governed by Sharia law. This is how the Islamists dress. And after the Islamic Republic took over Iran in 1979, this is how they forced women to dress. Just like that, like demonic woman there who looks like a garbage bag, right? And yet, you know, these Islamists are playing victim and they were believed. And the Islamists today are playing victim, and they're still being believed. Every single word coming out of this man's mouth is a lie.
On their head, such that whenever they would scream, it would echo in their head. And then they would whip you at the bottom of the sole of your feet with the electrical cords.
I had said on some previous occasion.
Yeah, George said, okay, George, yeah, I usually just put up starred comments, but I'll share this one because this is so true. A hood doesn't produce an echo. You're absolutely right. So what the hell was that guy saying? And why did the reporter believe him? Right? Because you heard Wallace say, I spoke with a man today and I believe him. So Wallace actually believed this guy's testimony that he had a hood over his head and that produced an echo sound. Like, the level of nonsense, and you can see the look on the Shah's face, right? He's just sitting there like, are you serious right now? Is this the level of idiocy that I have to deal with right now? But you know, now you guys are getting a glimpse of the Islamic propaganda that was used to justify overthrowing the Shah, right? This is the you know, the narrative that the Islamists use. These are the lies that the Islamists said about the Shah. So when they say the Shah was a dictator and he tortured people, he put hood. So what, like one example is he put a hood over their heads so that the sounds would echo when they were screaming. And as we know, hoods don't produce an echo. Do you see the level of idiocy we're dealing with these low IQ Islamists? And what's even more frustrating is that these Western journalists took them at face value. The media played, you know, the Western media played just as much of a role in the Islamic Revolution as anything else, because Western media enabled the jihadis. Western media legitimized the false claims that the jihadis and the communists were making. When the guy said that, you know, they put a hood over my head so that the sound would echo, the reporter should have been like, all right, I'm done. Like, this is insane. You're lying. But the reporter was like, no, that's terrible. I believe you. So the media definitely played a role in enabling the Islamic jihadi rhetoric that led to the Islamic Revolution in 1979. And the media today is playing an active role in promoting the jihadi rhetoric that Hamas is putting out as well. It's the same thing that's happening.
That we needed 10 years here to try to make this country a kind of a model state, a country where absolute justice will prevail, not only in the courts, but social justice too.
Iran was a dubious democracy, with the Shah as king, the grantor of all rights, with all the power, with special privileges for...
They call Iran a dubious democracy. Iran is a constitutional monarchy. That's like saying Canada is a dubious democracy because Canada is also a constitutional monarchy. The UK is a constitutional monarchy. There are numerous countries in Europe that are also constitutional monarchies. And yet somehow the constitutional monarchy of Iran is dubious. Do you see like this, the intent behind the words they're using? Like it's like they're setting the stage for something by creating doubt. Iran became a constitutional monarchy in 1906.
For his friends. They say you can't get a contract here, and everybody's here. You know that. Vendors, contractors, without a little of truth.
I think it's the most unjust thing that is said. It's just jealousy. For instance, the military purchases, it's government to government. If there is a corruption, it's from your government or the government of every other country from which we buy. So this is the unfairest and most unjust thing that I have heard.
Is it possible, Your Majesty, that because you are so busy and because you have so many things occupying you that it could be going on behind your back, sir?
No. It's impossible because I have at least 5 inspectorate organizations. One, sooner or later, they will be caught. And let me say this. First of all, I think this is a cheap accusation. Second, it is less than anything that you have in your so-called permissive society.
You mean you think there is more corruption in the United States than in...
Well, especially in your country, yes.
What you're saying, Your Majesty, is that Father knows best. What if you get a leader here who does not have your wisdom, your compassion?
Then the relationship between that leader and his people will not be the one existing between me and my people.
No.
He will become another leader, as we have many in our country, who was kicked out by, well, my father kicked the former king here because he had no contact with his people.
And of course there are some dissidents, very small in number here, who would like to kick you out. 12 of them are in jail, and a couple of them, or 3 of them, are going to be put to death.
And 6 more will be shot, but because they are betraying their country, not because they're against me.
And
did you hear that, guys? So the people that were executed were not because they were against the Shah, it's because they were found to be, they were guilty of treason, like they were working for foreign interests. Most of them were basically communists. So the communists were working for the Soviets, so they were basically traitors to Iran. Traitors get shot. Traitors get shot, right? If you're guilty of treason, you get shot. I think treason is still a capital punishment in the States anyway. And, you know, he doesn't hide the fact either. Like he's not beating around the bush. The reporter thinks that he just asked the Shah of Iran a gotcha question, right? Oh, you're executing people, gotcha. And the Shah's like, oh, actually, you missed all these other ones that were executed for treason. So he's not hiding the fact. He's making it very, very plain and very clear who he is and what he stands for. And the reporter keeps on trying to get him with these gotcha questions. And the Shah just, puts him in his place over and over and over again. I love his answer here. I want to go back and listen to this again. Sorry, just see. Major, if you really want to learn about this, search for Psy Warrior for History of PsyOps. I will. Thank you. I appreciate that. If you don't mind, maybe if you could put a comment in the member message board there, leave a comment for me there so that I can see it, and I'll definitely look into that. And then I just wanted to say thank you to Jane. Thank you for the super sticker. I appreciate you being here. I hope you're enjoying this and learning something. I'm certainly relearning a lot, and I'm just glad you guys are interested in learning about this with me. Because normally I would just be watching these videos on my own and just yelling at my computer. but at least now I can, speak to someone and you guys can respond. All right.
The former king here, because he had no contact with his people.
And of course, there are some dissidents, very small in number here, who would like to kick you out. 12 of them are in jail.
Okay, so this is important, right? Because the reporter conflates the two. The reporter says there are dissidents who want to kick you out, and because they want to kick you out, they are in jail and they're being executed. And then the Shah corrects him and he says they're in jail and they're being executed because they were tried for treason and found guilty of treason. It has nothing to do with me, right? So see how the reporter is trying to put this accusation on the Shah when it's the complete and total opposite. Listen to how the reporter just like conflates the two. It's so frustrating.
Well, my father kicked.
Like to kick you out. Of course, there are some.
The former king here, because he had no contact with his people.
And of course, there are some dissidents, very small in number here, who would like to kick you out. 12 of them are in jail, and a couple of them, or 3 of them, are going to be put to death.
And 6 more will be shot, but because they are betraying their country, not because they're against me.
And they're betraying their country by
being Marxists and owing their allegiance to not their country.
He's basically referring to the Soviet Union, right? Like, so the Soviets had a lot of Iranian, Marxists. Like, the Soviets were basically funding the communists and Marxists to come into Iran and destabilize, right? So that's what he's referring to. So he doesn't say Russia, but he's referring to the Soviet Union at the time. And as you can tell, he's not hiding the fact, right? Like, he's not hiding the fact that they are executing people who are found guilty of treason, right? If he was such a dictator and he had to hide the fact or whatever, like, he's not. Like, he's very open about it. He's very honest about it, and he's making it very clear. These people were traitors. They were found guilty of treason. They were being paid by Russia to come into Iran and destabilize.
Of course, there are some dissidents, very small in number here, who would like to kick you out. 12 of them are in jail, and a couple of them, or 3 of them, are going to be put to death.
And 6 more will be shot, but because they are betraying their country, not because they're against me.
And they're betraying their country by
being Marxists and owing their allegiance to not their country.
You're a firm man, sir.
It's still needed. I can forgive those who try to kill me and even abduct my wife and my child, but not those who betray the country.
Wow. He is not joking about the fact that he says he can forgive people who try to assassinate him. I will share that story another time because I don't have all the details, but there was an assassination attempt against the Shah. It was a failed assassination attempt, of course. And then instead of like executing the man, the Shah actually forgave the man, and then the Shah basically gave him like the means to rebuild his life and become a productive member of society. What sort of dictator does that? What sort of dictator pardons the person who tried to assassinate him and then gives him a second chance at life? That's the kind of person the Shah was. And Richard Nixon was absolutely right. He was not ruthless enough against the communists or Islamists because, guys, the Middle East is not like Europe. It's not like North America. The Middle East is ruthless, and you have to be strong with the Islamists, otherwise they will take over. So the Shah was an incredibly strong man. Incredibly strong man.
1,000,
okay.
Haven't you?
That's about it. There aren't many other soldiers in the British Army apart from Rhine Army. I mean, there are no other. The Teutons are in Germany. Full stop.
But you must have something in England.
The volume here is not really good.
When you're
Yeah, I know the volume's not good. I'm gonna have to find a different version of this. I'll save this for another stream then.
I've just returned from Iran and an encounter with possibly the most powerful.
So now we're sort of getting towards the late 1970s, you know, with high tensions and more tension here. So I think this is 78. I'm not sure, but we're getting close to, you know, doomsday here.
Single individual in the world today.
I have only 2 arms. But the strength comes because what I represent to my people, if they like it or not. You can't keep on the way you were doing because the old way was a little exaggerated.
Do you think our inflation in the Western world is our own fault?
Not mine, anyway, because it started well before we increased the price of oil. You built your progress and your affluence at our expense. So you can't say that we increased the price of oil all of a sudden because for...
So here he's talking about the price increase in oil, right? Which he basically did because Iran was basically giving it away. And that pissed off the Americans.
20 and some odd years, maybe 24 years, we have just been terribly exploited in a very mean way.
But weren't you a kind of partner to that exploitation when you signed the oil agreement of 1954, for instance?
Well, we had no choice. What else? We were starving, and we had to start doing something to build the country. We had no choice. They dictated to us, they decreased the posted price of oil when all the price of commodities in the world were on the increase. And they were telling us, well, take it or leave it, and we had to take it. Now, things have been put right.
So what basically happened between the 1950s and the 1970s is that industrialization, right? So we saw that in the earlier clip I played with the interview with the Shah in 1960, right? That was sort of Iran had just started to become you know, industrialized, and then of course in my live stream earlier today, I played, you know, there was some images there talking about like industrialization in the 70s. So what happened between the 50s and the 70s is Iran, because of, you know, the investments that the Shah put into the country, Iran went from sort of, you know, a country that couldn't, you know, take care of itself and was basically forced into an undesirable deal for the price of oil. Okay, that was in 1950s because they had no choice. To, you know, he basically invested the next 20 years into turning Iran into a powerhouse. And then it got to the point where in the 1970s, Iran could now dictate the price of oil because Iran had become self-sufficient. Iran did no longer required foreign aid or foreign funds or whatever the case might be. The Shah literally spent 20 years making Iran self-sufficient. And if the Islamic Republic had not taken over and turned our country into a 7th century Islamic hellhole, Iran would have been the South Korea or the Singapore or the Japan of the Middle East. That's the trajectory that we were headed towards. And so for the reporter, like again, like the reporter is just, everyone was attacking him, everyone was slandering him, right? Like she says, well, aren't you complicit in the bad deal because you signed it? Well, he said, I had no choice. We needed the money. We were dictated by foreign powers and told what to do, and I had to do it because I was not in a position of strength. And he says now, 20 years later, the situation has changed. I am in a position of strength, and so I'm dictating the price of oil. That's basically what he's saying. But just notice, like, the amount of slander, okay, the amount of slander that he gets from all sides, it's wild, it's insane. It's like there was an agenda to slander him and eventually overthrow him.
All the price of commodities in the world were on the increase. And they were telling us, well, take it or leave it, and we had to take it. Now, things have been put right. And
Just want to respond to some of the chats here. Big Elvis, you look just like Joanna Angel. Thank you. I don't know who that is, but thank you. Major, had to send a link to your Insta. Okay, thank you. I'll take a look at that for sure. I appreciate that, Major.
and the price of oil is still so low that you have not yet started to mine your coal mines and liquefy the coal and gasify the coal, or even go in a big way in the development of your nuclear energy and find any other sources of energy.
But how much does it actually cost for your country to produce oil? In Canada, it costs us a great deal because we have to get it out of the Arctic. We have so many natural barriers to it. But you're just pumping it out of the sand as you've always pumped it out.
I don't think that this is a very fair question, because you are paying more your workers, so you have the right to ask more for your oil. And furthermore, then you are blessed with other things. For instance, you can grow wheat so cheap because you don't need any irrigation. You get all the water from the skies. You don't have to spend any money on the irrigation of that, when we have to do it. And that's why you and the Americans are feeding the world with your wheat. And all of a sudden, your wheat that was sold for $60 a few years ago, you sold it for $245 last year or the year before. So your question, I don't think, is fair.
What you're trying to say is that we are asking more for our commodities the same way that you are.
Yes, exactly. And why? I don't know why you think that you are superior.
Do you think that we generally suffer from that, the feeling that we are?
I think that you are, so far, maybe, but probably you will change.
Why will we change?
Because your eyes are opened. And fundamentally, you are not unjust people. You have just been living in an unjust world for so long. But you will accommodate with the new realities of the world. We won't be pushed around. We don't wish a war. But if it is imposed on us, we will not shrink. For the next 20, 25 years, it's absolutely vital for us, because the Straits of Hormuz, which is the entrance to the Persian Gulf, is our jugular vein. We live by that. And furthermore, our forces which are there are not just for the Persian Gulf. They're just stationed there. They could serve in any direction. Nobody could invade us without being forced to crush us, because we are not going to surrender. What excuse will you have to come to these oil-producing countries? It will be barbaric, without any precedent in the world, the worst imperialistic movement that the world had ever known. How could you do that? And it's strange that it's absolutely normal for other countries to have even more arms than we have. And you start to talk about our force when you find it so obvious and normal for other countries. I can't quite make this out.
Is it perhaps that the West...
I have a feeling that, this interview is probably what scared Jimmy Carter. Because like the Shah's not saying anything bad. He's being very strong. He's being very confident. He's saying we want to be peaceful with everyone. Iran was peaceful with everyone. Iran didn't start any wars when the Shah was there, right? Iran, like, not a single war, right? Because the policy of the Middle East is peace through strength, something that President Trump is just figuring out right now. But of course, the Shah of Iran knew at the time. I have a feeling that, this interview probably freaked out Jimmy Carter, and that's why Jimmy Carter decided to support this like inbred Islamic cleric demon, right? Because they thought that they could control the Islamists. They thought, like, Jimmy Carter literally thought that the Shah was too powerful, and he wanted to replace the Shah with someone that Jimmy Carter could control. Turns out turns out that the people that Jimmy Carter thought he could control are the savage jihadis who took American hostages and started yelling death to America. Great job, Jimmy Carter. Great job. That's not even counting for the fact that all those jihadis have been murdering Iranians, right? Like Jimmy Carter, one of the people implicated. I mean, there's a whole lot of factors here, right? It's not like one thing or another that led to the Islamic Revolution. There's a whole bunch of factors that all play in here, but Jimmy Carter's role was a critical one. Jimmy Carter was basically a useful idiot for the Soviets at the time because the people that Jimmy Carter backed, they were trained and funded by the Soviets. Jimmy Carter was a useful idiot for the Soviets at the time. And all that happened because Jimmy Carter was afraid that the Shah was becoming too powerful. The Shah had to be powerful. He was fighting off Islamists. He was dealing with the threat of Islamic terrorism in Iran. And look what happened when the Shah left. Look what happened when the Islamists came in. They turned Iran into a 7th century Islamic hellhole. And they have been murdering us Iranians every day. On average, 3 Iranians. In this last year alone, every day at least 3 Iranians are murdered by the Islamic Republic for no reason whatsoever.
Western countries are just not used to thinking of Iran as a major world power in any terms whatsoever, whether it's dealing about oil.
See, this is important. So she's like, Western countries aren't used to you because the Shah was so good at modernizing and developing Iran, right? It only took him 20 years to take Iran from like an unknown mystical land to like a thriving industrial powerhouse. And that was, I guess that scared the Western countries.
When you find it so obvious and normal for other countries. I can't quite make this out.
Is it perhaps that the Western countries are just not used to thinking of Iran as a major world power in any terms whatsoever, whether it's dealing about oil or whether it's talking about an army?
Yes, maybe you're right. But they will have to cope with this development soon.
You're noted as a very strong authority figure in Iran, and yet you're extremely popular with the people. Somebody said to me that if the...
Did you catch that? So strong authoritative figure, but extremely popular with the people. Why? Because the Iranian people loved the Shah. They loved his strength. They loved the fact that he was taking care of them. The people who called him an authoritative figure were the Islamists and the communists who were trying to destabilize the country. The Shah was, the reporter said it, not me. The reporter admitted that the Shah was loved by the Iranian people. Listen to that, guys. Catch that. That's important.
Development soon.
You're noted as a very strong authority figure in Iran, and yet you're extremely popular with the people. Somebody said to me that if there were a referendum held tomorrow, 90% of the people would vote yes for the Shah and all his policies. Why then do you need to be so authoritarian if you have this kind of popular support and warmth towards you?
Well, first of all, it's more than 90%. Secondly, what do you call authority?
I love that response.
To make such fantastic...
I love this part. I love this part because, again, these journalists, they just throw out these words, right? She's like, well, you're loved by your people, so why are you such an authoritarian? And he's like, well, what do you mean? When you say authoritarian, what do you mean by that? Right? Like he's calling out the reporters on their BS and nonsense.
You're noted as a very strong authority figure in Iran, and yet you're extremely popular with the people. Somebody said to me that if there were a referendum held tomorrow, 90% of the people would vote yes for the Shah and all his policies. Why then do you need to be so authoritarian if you have this kind of popular support and warmth towards you?
Well, first of all, it's more than 90%. Secondly, what do you call authority? To enforce the law? To make such fantastic, drastic changes without bloodshed? If you call this authority, I don't think that my people mind that. They want it.
It's been said that there are some 20,000 political prisoners in Iran.
That's not true. We have about
20,000.
3,000 and not more.
I love that. See, even the numbers are inflated. Even the numbers are inflated. The reporter's like, there's 20,000 political prisoners in the Shah. He's like, no, we have 3,000. There's 3,000. That's it. That's so important, guys, because the communists and Islamists, they will constantly say that the Shah and Savak, they murdered hundreds of thousands of Iranians, right? They conflate the numbers, just like Hamas conflates numbers, just like all the jihadis conflate numbers. Again, everything the Islamists say is a lie. And the Shah, without hesitation, he says, no, that's wrong, it's 3,000. And he's not hiding the fact. And you know what? He's not like apologizing for it either. Like, he's stating a fact. He's like, we have 3,000 political prisoners. And then he's going to go and explain what he means, which is the best part. But I love how direct he is with his answers, right? Like, he's not afraid of anything. He's not hiding anything. He's very factual.
I don't think that my people mind that. They want it.
It's been said that there are some 20,000 political prisoners in Iran.
That's not true. We have about 3,000 and not more. Some people have even said that there are between 25,000 and 100,000 political prisoners.
You deny this?
Do I deny it? First of all, it's our business and not any of their business. But the truth, the reality is that we have not more than 3,000.
And how do you define political prisoner?
These Marxists.
Does torture happen in Iran?
So again, the political prisoners, guys, they're always the communists. They're always the Marxists, right? Every single time a reporter is asking him about the political prisoners, it's always the Marxists, right? And remember, guys, he banned communism. Communism was banned in Iran because it was viewed as a threat that was destabilizing the country, because these Marxists were funded and trained by the Soviets, right? Like, these Marxists then came up with this concept of Islamic Marxism, right? That's what he's referring to. And don't forget, which country just recently banned communism? It was Czech Republic. Czech Republic recently banned communism because they recognize the inherent danger of it. And now, if someone is promoting communism in Czech Republic, they go to jail. Is that person a political prisoner, or are they someone who broke the law? Right? So even these 3,000 political prisoners are not actually political prisoners. They're traitors who are breaking the law. They want to destabilize the country. They're serving a foreign interest. How is that a political prisoner?
Well, this is a question that was put to me more than once, and which I don't like at all, because it's so ridiculous that I don't have to answer that. But for the sake of this interview, I will say that we don't have to torture people. This is the way that unsophisticated.
See, like, you can tell that he's so over this, right? Like, every single reporter who see him asks him about torture, without providing any shred of evidence or proof that there's any sort of torture happening. Spoiler, there was no torture. And he's just getting sick of it. He's like, why do you keep on bringing this up when you have no evidence, no proof, nothing, right? And he answers very clearly, but you like, do you see the pattern here with every single reporter who is asking him about the alleged torture without a shred of proof? If anyone has any evidence of this torture, please let me know, because I have studied extensively the history of my own country, and I don't see it. So, to those people in the chat who are claiming that there was torture, where's the proof? Show me the proof. Yep, 100%. So the Wilson Center has recovered KGB files on their support to the Tudeh party. Yes, I mean, listen, Major, I have not even breached the subject of, Mossadegh. Mossadegh was a KGB plant. We as Iranians, we all know this. And one of the biggest and most effective pieces of Russian disinformation and propaganda was this whole narrative of, the Shah was installed through a CIA coup, Mossadegh was democratically, like all that nonsense, right? Biggest Russian disinformation campaign. Mossadegh was tied to the Tudeh party. The Tudeh party was tied to the KGB. Again, like all these Marxists and communists were part of the Russian campaign to destabilize Iran so that the Marxists could take over and turn Iran into a proxy of the Soviets. That was the plan. That was the plan. And eventually, Russia became successful because they fooled Jimmy Carter into thinking that the Ayatollah was not a communist. Guess who is allies with Russia right now? The Islamic Republic. The Islamic Republic is the ally of Russia. That's not by coincidence, guys. It goes back to all of this.
The organization were doing things. We are as sophisticated as you are now.
Sophisticated in methods of interrogation.
Yes.
So the torture, fingernail pulling, people being toasted in wire mesh, which we were reading about in the English papers.
English papers. There is one paper, and I find this disgusting. And I don't really appreciate at all a serious organization like you repeating trash that you can see in one paper in one country. Why do you have even to repeat that?
It has, because it's been very widely reported, and the Sunday Times in Canada anyway is not considered to be a trashy paper.
That article was trash if you read it from the top to the bottom.
So you categorically deny that?
Yes, and I don't have to deny it because it's none of your business, but I do.
I have to see if I can find that article. I mean, it should be in the archives somewhere, right? So what was it like? I'll go back and I'll listen to the paper, but I would be very interested in finding that article because there was a lot of, like the Shah said, a lot of trash articles that were being put out by the Islamists and the communists to attack him, to tarnish his reputation. And the way that these jihadis work and the way that Russian disinformation and propaganda work is that the more you repeat a lie, the easier it becomes for people to believe it. And Western media was complicit in enabling the Islamic Republic to overthrow the Shah and turn Iran into a 7th century Islamic hellhole. Western media was complicit in that because they were publishing all of these unfounded lies with no journalistic integrity whatsoever, but because it's published, it must be true. The Islamists even published articles in Playboy magazine. Did you know that? The Islamists, these like devout Islamic clerics also did interviews with Playboy magazine about the Shah. Like that's how widespread the jihadi and communist propaganda was when it came to spreading the disinformation. And you can see it right here. Like we're literally watching it unfold before our very eyes. And this interviewer, I think, lacks zero credibility. And to me, she is complicit in enabling the Islamic Revolution, just like every single other reporter out there that just, they saw a story. Oh, let's write about this story, even though there's like no truth to it whatsoever. I want to go back and listen to his answer. So her question and answer, because again, it goes back to the whole thing of torture, right?
Torture happened in Iran.
Let's go back here.
Drastic changes without bloodshed. If you call this authority, I don't think that my people mind that. They want it.
It's been said that there are some 20,000 political prisoners in Iran.
We went back a little too far. That's
we
okay.
have about 3,000 and not more. Some people have even said that there are between 25,000 and 100,000 political prisoners.
You deny this?
Do I deny it? First of all, it's our business and not any of their business. But the truth, the reality is that we have not more than 3,000.
And how do you define political prisoner?
These Marxists.
Does torture
Right?
happen
Communists,
in
the
Iran?
Marxists.
Well, this is...
Do you see, like every single reporter asks this question, does torture happen in Iran? Do you have any proof? Like, how can you even call yourself a journalist when you ask these ridiculous questions without any sort of documentation or proof to back up what you're saying? They all fell for the jihadi propaganda.
A question that was...
It was, you know what? Niku, you're absolutely right. It was a total and complete witch hunt. That's exactly, like, these people were out for blood. They had an agenda to get this man out of power, and everyone was working together. Like, could you imagine? Could you imagine today? There have been like hundreds of interviews of journalists with Hamas terrorists, right? People who are literally Islamic terrorists who are murdering, torturing people every day. And yet, not a single journalist has asked any one of those Hamas leaders, does torture happen in Gaza? If you can find me one journalist today that has asked a leader of Hamas, does torture happen? Do you torture people in Gaza? Let me know. But that's what they were doing to the Shah of Iran in the late 1970s. They were treating him like he was some sort of corrupt dictator, criminal, whatever. Literally the farthest thing from the truth. Hamas, you're right, Hamas just did public executions and no one spoke about that. No one cares about that. But yet all these reporters in the 1970s are going on about this, like, this made up torture story.
Put to me more than once, and which I don't like at all. Because it's so ridiculous that I don't have to answer that. But for the sake of this interview, I will say that we don't have to torture people. This is the way that unsophisticated organizations were doing things. We are as sophisticated as you are now.
Sophisticated in
So he makes a very good point. He's basically saying, he's basically calling out her racism. He's saying we're a civilized nation, we're a civilized society just like you. Why would you think we would act like savages? We are just as civilized as you, so why would we even do that? Right? Like, he's basically calling out her racism and Orientalism.
methods of interrogation.
Yes.
So the torture, fingernail pulling, people being toasted in wire mesh, which we were reading about in the English papers.
Did you hear that, guys? Just look at his face. Look at the Shah of Iran's face when she says that she read in a paper that people were being toasted in wire meshes. Like, he's probably going in his head like, WTF right now. No proof, by the way, no proof, no evidence, nothing. It's just something someone wrote in a paper. The source, trust me, bro. Do you see the propaganda and the lies here, guys? Nothing that she's asking has any proof. Like she has nothing to back up her statement or claims. Like, you would think that if people were being burned in wire meshes, right, that there would be photos of their scars, right? I have not seen a single photo of a so-called prisoner being toasted. Where are the scars? Because burns leave scars. So show me these human pieces of toast, I guess. I don't know. Right? Where are these people? You would think there would be some sort of photo or documentary evidence. Where are the photos of these toaster beds? Where are the giant toaster beds that the Islamists and Marxists claim the Shah used to toast people? Like, just look at his face. Like, it's such a ridiculous claim, right? Like, his face is just like, what are you even saying right now? Like, I can only imagine what he's saying in Farsi. Because when I hear this, even I want to, like, swear. But, like, just, again, listen to what she says. She's talking about human toasters now.
Interrogation.
Yes.
So the torture, fingernail pulling, people being toasted in wire mesh, which we were reading about in the English papers.
English papers. There is one paper, and I find this disgusting. And I don't really appreciate at all a serious organization like you repeating trash that you can see in one.
Yeah, this was the Fifth Estate, guys. This was the Fifth Estate, and the Fifth Estate considered this journalism. The Fifth Estate asked the Shah of Iran if he tortures people by turning them into giant pieces of toast because she read about that in a paper somewhere. That was the journalistic integrity when it came to the propaganda about the Islamic Republic. Propaganda that the Islamic Republic was promoting, right? Where are these cinnamon toast crunch people? Where are these Iranians who were supposedly turned into pieces of toast? It's insane. Like I get frustrated because it's like you're watching this horror movie in slow motion, and we know where this is going to lead, and you're just like, you want it to stop, but you can't. And then I'm watching this now, and I'm like, how the hell? Like, how did this reporter even get away with asking such a ridiculous question?
Paper in one country. Why do you have even to repeat that?
It has, because it's been very widely reported, and the Sunday Times in Canada anyway is not considered to be a trashy paper.
That article was trash if you read it from the top to the bottom.
So you categorically deny that?
Yes, and I don't have to deny it because it's none of your business, but I do.
You've often said that you have never sentenced to death anyone who has attempted to kill you.
Constance, you make a very good point. Oil definitely had a part to play in that, and so he spoke about that at the beginning, actually. And so I don't know if you were here for the beginning of this particular interview, but she did ask him about, him not renewing the 1954 contract and raising the price of oil, and he did speak about that. So yeah, 100%. Like, so many different factors, oil definitely played a part in that for sure.
How many attempts have there been?
One, but he was killed by the security people. Then the second, 5, 6 people were involved. They were all pardoned by myself.
Did you hear that? So the 5 or 6 people who tried to assassinate him, he pardoned them. Does that sound like an evil, corrupt dictator to you? He literally pardoned the people who tried to murder him. Listen to this again. Listen to this again. This is the guy that the Islamists and communists are telling you is a corrupt dictator.
Yes, and I don't have to deny it because it's none of your business, but I do.
You've often said that you have never sentenced to death anyone who has attempted to kill you. How many attempts have there been?
One, but he was killed by the security people. Then the second, 5, 6 people were involved. They were all pardoned by myself. And indirectly, we know that there have been some attempts which did not materialize. And they have been also pardoned. And this has been my policy and probably will always be my policy. I forgive when anything concerns me personally. And I can't do it when it concerns the country and the state.
Are you ever afraid when you make public appearances?
Never. First of all, I'm not afraid of anything. Secondly, I know very well that I will be around as long as it has been written.
Wow. Um, so that was getting close. I'm gonna end it soon. So I'm gonna play um this is
When
the
I
last
committed, I think,
interview.
Did the
So
right
sorry. So this is a clip from the last interview that the Shah of Iran ever had. He passed away shortly after this from leukemia. This is shortly after the Islamic Revolution happened, and the Shah is now in exile. And yeah, I mean, I'll play it and then I'll leave it there. I'll find the full interview and I'll play it another time. But I hope that for those of you who've been with me from the beginning of the live stream, you've now seen who the Shah is or who the Shah was and the kind of person he was. And you know, I took you through a bunch of interviews, and I'm gonna play Richard Nixon's interview again, because now that you've seen all of these other interviews with the Shah, it really adds important context to what Richard Nixon was saying about the Shah.
When I committed, I think, the mistake of changing the Almuzagar government and precipitate the liberalization program, I wanted to create, as I said, a coalition to form a national government representing all shades, especially the opposition people. I tried very hard, and I worked very hard on that, but it did not come true.
And do you think that Mr. Sharif Imami initially at the beginning did the right things or not?
Well, you can say yes and you can say no, because it was surrendering on all fronts to everyone, opening the jails and giving freedom to all, and at the same time asking for martial law. So it was a mockery. We had officially the martial law, but it was not put into practice.
At what point, you said yesterday from September onwards, but was it really from when Sharif Imami was appointed? At what point did you decide to step back? I mean, Sharif Imami's actions were his actions,
yes,
or your actions?
No. This government, they started to weigh on their own completely. He would come and see me, obviously. He would telephone to me. I would telephone to him. But the question of what the system that used to work before was absolutely changed. They would adopt and decide about things that they would never even report to me.
Was there a time when you privately said to yourself, I may have to leave, before anyone suggested it to you? I may not win this battle?
It was not so much the question that I was thinking that it was time to go. I was rather thinking that you know, like an end to something.
Without thinking of going, you were thinking maybe this is the end of an era.
Of something. Of me, of an era, or of something. So the question is that, so all those forces which were liberated, and we should have established this beautiful democracy, where are they today? as I said, either outside the country or in hiding. 1.5 million people, Iranians, have left the country. Not only the rich people, but the best brains of the country, the best minds of the country. They have all left. Everybody who can leave the country is leaving the country. So where are those people?
So he's referring to the mass exodus of people after the Islamic Republic took over Iran. There was a mass exodus of people escaping because they didn't want to live in an Islamic dictatorship. So there was a massive brain drain. There still continues to be a massive brain drain because anyone in Iran who does have the ability to leave will leave. No one wants to willingly live in an Islamic dictatorship, right? Like it is a horrible, horrible place to live right now. Like the Islamic Republic has turned Iran into a living hell.
In the Bar Association and in other places who were promising democracy and these things, where are they today? You ask me why they are concentrating so much against me, my person, and accusing me of mass murdering or even money manipulation, which is very far from my nature. The adopting its Nazi-like propaganda is something quite curious. It comes in the picture that the man there now, you see, he doesn't want to hear about the history of our country one day before he came back to Tehran a year ago and took over. He says the history of the country does not exist. There has not been a single good king in the history of Iran. So he thinks that the history of Iran starts with him on whatever it was, February of 1979. That's why they are concentrating so much on me, because I was the king. The history of Iran must disappear. With I as a king, with the other kings, with everything that existed before February 1979. A patriot must think of the future. I'm thinking of the year 2000. If we kept our youth and our population out of the orbit of the new technology, how could we be competitive with the rest of the world in the year 2000? Unless we are ready to fall in the category of the 5th or 6th grade nations. Now they say that boys of 15 and girls of 13 could marry. Our population explosion is 3.
Did you hear that? So the Shah was modernizing, right? The Shah was encouraging Iranians, boys and girls, to get an education, to go to school, go to university, make something of their lives. And then when the Islamic Republic came and took over, they did the exact opposite. They brought in Sharia law, they brought in their like jihadi 7th century values, and they were encouraging girls as young as 13 to get married. Right? Like they were basically trying to undo all of the modernization that the Shah had implemented. Now, thank God it didn't really catch on, right? But the Islamic Republic, right? Like they wanted to turn Iran into another Afghanistan, and the only reason they have been unable to do so is because of this man and how much he invested in educating Iranians, moving society forward, bringing society forward, so that as far back as the Islamic Republic did push us, they were never able to break us, right? But look, like that was the priority for the Islamic Republic, encouraging 13-year-old girls to get married and have babies and not go to school. That's the MO of Islamists. It's how they operate everywhere. It's disgusting.
3.2 already. Soon it will become, I don't know, in the category of 5 to 6%. How are they going to feed these mouths? Especially if...
Again, excellent question, right? He's saying, how is the Islamic Republic going to feed everyone with the way things are going? And right now, today, and I said at the beginning, the Islamic Republic, so incompetent, inbred jihadi savages, completely uneducated, right? The only thing they read is the Quran, which is completely useless when it comes to running a country. 70% of Iranians today live below the poverty line. People in Iran are starving, all because of the mismanagement of the Islamic Republic. The Shah saw this. This is 1980. He saw all of this, and he was predicting this 47 years ago. And even though this was at the height of the hatred people had for him because of the, Islamic Republic and the fervor, he was still thinking about his people, right? He could have easily said, oh, F the people, they did this to me, they betrayed me, I want nothing to do with them. No, even though he was in exile, he is still showing concern and love for the Iranian people, because these were still his people. This is how much love he had for Iran and the country. This is why the Islamists hate him and try to smear him and attack him.
What now is making the wheels turn somewhat, that his oil money will be finished. It's only through technology and mastering the science, and the future of the world is based on technology and science. And this is only in the Western world that you could find. So the man is not thinking of the country or its future, only about his hatred against me.
Right, so he's saying he's the man that he's referring to is Khomeini, right? Like the evil, demonic Islamic Ayatollah or whatever that basically founded the Islamic Republic, and then once he took over, turned our country into 7th century Islamic hellhole, right? He's not thinking about Iran. He's not thinking about the future. He's not doing any of the things that he claimed he would do. Instead, it's all about Sharia law and, impregnating 13-year-old girls and stoning women to death and, Islam. It's all about Islam. Overnight, he turned Iran into a 7th century Sharia law hellhole. And the Shah is like, how is this going to work? How is he going to feed people? And why did they do that? Because the Ayatollah was so consumed by his hatred for the Shah. Not just hatred, guys, fear. The Islamic Republic has a very strong fear, not just of the Shah, but also of his son, the current Shah in exile, Reza Pahlavi, who has dedicated his life, by the way, to advocating for a free and secular Iran, right? The regime fears him just as much as his father, because just like his father, he is loved, he is supported, and people want him back. And the Islamic Republic knows that the current Shah in exile is the only person who can overthrow them. And that's why you see all the communists and Islamists and jihadis attacking not just the late Shah, but the current Shah, because he poses a very serious threat. And the Islamic Republic is very close to the end. Now, in my other live streams, I've spoken a lot about this, and I'll continue to do that. But this is more just, showing you who the Shah was on the occasion of his birthday, and showing you guys, interview by interview, all of the lies and propaganda and smear campaign that was against him. Everything that you think you know about the Shah is a lie. You have been lied to. And you have been lied to by the Islamists and the communists, because they want to justify turning Iran into an Islamic hellhole. And the only way they can justify that is by villainizing this man. But I'll tell you something, Iranians, we know the truth about him. And I'm hoping that at least now with these English version of the English version interviews, you as well can get a little bit of glimpse and input and insight into the kind of person that he was. And again, this is the last interview that he ever did before then passing away from cancer, because he was in like stage 4 of leukemia here.
I'm thinking of the country, of our people, of our future, and he's just want to destroy what I am. That's the difference. And when I tell you, Mr. Frost, that I still cannot understand, I will repeat that again. I still cannot understand what has happened.
If you had your time as Shahanshah over again, those 37 years, what would you have done differently?
Well, now probably I will say a few things, because something went wrong, obviously. And in addition of either saying the truth or making yourself excuses and all kind of things to defend yourself against the failures, but probably in addition to all the intrigues from within and without, something has gone wrong. And this is what I think about. I have recently published a book in which I elaborate on some of these subjects, but I will tell you now that either we started a little too late the liberalization program, or we started a little too early and too fast. Either we should have started it in 1973 instead of 75 or 6, or at a time of crisis, when we were seeing that things were moving in the direction of complete chaos and anarchy, then to take our time, first to re-establish law, order, and the execution of rule, implementation of rule, and then start to liberalize again. It's one of those two things, but I was following my inner instincts.
How do you think future generations of Iranians will view your 37 years?
The truth and the reality of history could not be kept always.
I'm going to tell you something, guys. So there's 3 generations of Iranians who never had the honor of knowing him or living under his reign, right? Myself, because I'm millennial, Gen Z, and then Gen A. This man is more popular today amongst, the future generation of Iranians, myself and those coming after me. He is more popular today than he ever was prior to 1979. I can tell you that right now. And this is why we're trying to raise awareness, because the communists and the Islamists and the Democrats and Jimmy Carter and the media and France and everyone did him dirty. Everyone did him dirty. The day that he left Iran, it was a dark, dark day. People in Iran were crying. They were in shock. And we'll get into that another time, but I just want you guys to know that speaking on behalf of the future generations, because this interview was in 1980, the future generations weren't born yet, I can tell you that we love him. And what happened in 1979 was a travesty, absolute travesty. Like, it's just, it's heartbreaking.
How do you think future generations of Iranians will view your 37 years?
The truth and the reality of history could not be kept always in the shadows. That is impossible. Truth will come out in any case, sooner or later.
And at that point, in 50 years' time, how will future Iranians judge you?
50 years, I hope it will be sooner than that.
Guys, we're coming on 50 years, right? Like the Shah is in debt. Like, he's like, is it really going to take 50 years to take the country back from the Islamic occupation? I hope it doesn't take that long. Guys, we're coming up on the 50-year mark. We're already at 47 years. Like, this is how brutal the Islamic Republic is. Every single time we're trying to overthrow them, they just murder us. Jeez.
And at that point, in 50 years' time, how will future Iranians judge you?
50 years, I hope it will be sooner than that.
Well, whenever, I was saying, how will your people, after a period, judge you?
Well, if they read history, they will see what it was before my father, what it was when I took over, and what it was when I left.
Do you feel that...
I can tell you that it took much less, but again, we love him. He is, I would say, after Cyrus the Great, he is one of the most important figures in Iranian history. One of the most loved, by the way, like, absolutely loved by all Iranians, right? It's a shame what happened. But, you know, even in exile, right? Even in exile, he's not bitter. He's not angry. He's not blaming the Iranian people. He's still showing his love and support for you, because this man loved Iran with all of his being, all of his heart. He put his country first, even before his own power and authority and life and safety and everything. And even in exile, he is still thinking about Iran and the future of Iran.
That your people let you down, or that you let your people down?
First of all, when we say the people, we cannot talk about all the people. That's absolutely not true. I can say that the silent majority remained silent. And if I let my people down, it was for the purpose that I tried to explain, that a king cannot be a dictator and that the throne could not be based on blood. This is my...
Do you hear that, guys? Do you hear that? He is literally saying, I'm not going to murder Iranians for the sake of my throne. And yet the Islamists and communists call him a dictator and claim that he murdered thousands of people. And yet it does not fit with the truth. It does not fit with the reality. And he also spoke about the silent majority. Again, the silent majority of Iranians who never in a million years ever thought that the communists and Islamists would get strong enough to depose their beloved Shah. And yet that's exactly what happened. And by the time Iranians started speaking out, It was already too late. So for those of you in your own countries who are starting to see these Marxists and Islamists become more powerful and unite, do not make the mistake that Iranians made. Do not be the silent majority. You guys have to speak out. You have to speak up. Because one day, God forbid, you'll wake up and your country has been taken over by Islamists or communists and you're living in hell. That's what happened to Iranians 47 years ago. And we have been in this horrific nightmare ever since.
Only explanation for what it is worth.
Did your people let you down, do you think?
Well, the majority of them is not.
Is the worst thing about being here thinking of your homeland?
Well, here or anywhere outside my country is the same. The question is that you cannot stop thinking about your own country.
What do you miss most about it?
What I miss, or what makes me really cry, is that we could have been this year, surely by the end of '82, something quite viable. And what are we now? What does it serve? The religion? Democracy? Human rights? The rule of the people?
God, guys, I'm sorry, I have to stop there. So depressing. And he's right. What what happened? What happened? Iran became a nightmare. Everything that he had been working towards slowly destroyed bit by bit. Communism and Islamism took over. They started murdering Iranians. And it wasn't enough for them to take over Iran, guys. It wasn't enough for them to take over my country. That's when they started their Islamic expansionism into Lebanon, into Gaza, into Iraq, Yemen, Nigeria, the Islamic Republic. The Islamic Republic is using the money, right? The money that comes from what the Shah built. The Shah took Iranian money and he invested it in Iran. The Islamists came, and ever since they came, they erased our Iranian identity, right? Everything is about Islam and Allah. Our flag, they took our flag away from us. They replaced it with Allahu Akbar. Again, we're Iranian. We speak Persian. We don't speak Arabic. But the Islamic colonizers brought their Allahu Akbar jihad flag with them. And then instead of investing in Iranians, because they're occupiers, they're colonizers, they're taking the money, they're taking all the investments that the Shah put in Iran, and they're using it not only to line their own pockets, but to fund terrorism in the Middle East and around the world. The only thing the Islamic Republic is good at, you guys, is murdering Iranians. That's the only thing they're good at doing. The only thing they excel in is murdering Iranians who speak out. I'll have to leave it here, guys, but thank you for joining. I'll go back to, my usual noon live streams tomorrow. Today was the birthday of this great and amazing man, Shahanshah Aryamer Ruhat Shad. Tawalludet Mubarak. Yeah. I hope you guys got to see the side of him that you don't see in the media, right? You don't see this in the media. And let's go back to what Richard Nixon said, and then we'll end the space.
The Shah is generally.
So this clip, this interview was shortly after the Shah passed away from cancer. So this is just like a few months after that last interview with the Shah.
The Shah is generally accepted as having been a very repressive and oppressive ruler. His Savak tortured and killed. He lived in considerable splendor and opulence while there was terrible poverty in his country. In your book, Leaders, you write that he was not ruthless enough in quashing those who threatened his nation's stability. Do you think he should have been more ruthless?
Yes, I do, particularly in view of the fact that his opponents were not those who were basically more liberal, but because basically they were reactionary. They were the true reactionaries. Let's look at the Shah for just a moment and look at him very fairly. He actually was a progressive in a number of ways. He instituted a land reform program. He instituted a literacy program. He sent thousands of students from Iran to the United States, and particularly the United States, to study, and in other countries as well. He liberated women. The irony was that those he liberated, the women and the students he sent abroad, they came back and joined the revolutionary forces. And the irony was that the Shah, being progressive, was attacked as being reactionary and conservative on these particular issues, whereas his opponents were the reactionaries. Putting it very bluntly and very simply, the Shah was trying to move Iran into the 20th century. His opponents, Khomeini et al., wanted to move Iran back into the Dark Ages, and that's what they've done. Now, there was some repression, true. Now there is total repression. There may not have been enough land reform. Now there is none whatever. What I am simply suggesting is this, that when we look at the Shah, we have to look at him in terms of what he confronted. And he confronted revolutionary forces there that were not working, in my view, for what was best for Iran and certainly not best for ourselves. And most important from the United States standpoint, instead of having a friend in Iran, we now have one that is not only not a friend, but one that considers us to be the great Satan.
There you go. Happy birthday to one of the most amazing, or one of the most amazing emperors we've ever had. We have not forgotten your legacy. We are honoring your legacy. We will continue to honor your legacy, Shahanshah Arya Mehr, and we will reclaim Iran, and we'll return it back to the glory and to the vision that you had for the country. پاینده ایران جاوید شاه.